Look at what you've done. Because of your mistake, we've lost a major contract. You'd better prepare for the worst, start packing your things. The furious roar of our department head, Casey, echoed through the office. Apparently, our beautiful supervisor had caused some kind of trouble regarding an important client contract. At this point, there's no helping it. I guess I'll have to step in and take care of this. My name is Tucker. I'm a 30-year-old employee at X Foods Trading Company. I've been here for 3 years now, but I don't have a title or any particular position. Behind my back, people call me an outsider. Hey! Hearing a senior call out someone next to me, I instinctively looked around. A junior colleague sneered, "He means you, Tucker." Oh, wait. Maybe he actually knows we call him outsider behind his back. These guys are always so rude. I thought this to myself, but I didn't say it out loud. At first, they only used that nickname when I wasn't around, but lately, they hardly even bothered to hide it. They just ridicule me for no reason. Sure, maybe I've given them a reason to treat me this way, but come on, we're all adults here. Here we go again. I'd gotten so used to this kind of treatment that I stopped feeling anger or frustration. At some point, I decided it was pointless to confront people who find amusement in childish group antics. I just kept my face blank and my emotions hidden every day, so I could get through each day in peace. But I never imagined that this dull, uneventful life of mine would start to change because of one woman. One day, a new female staff joined our department. I'm April. I just joined this department as a manager. It's a pleasure to meet you all. She's a manager right off the bat? That's a big promotion. Well, it doesn't matter to me. Just as I thought that, Casey turned to me and said, "Tucker, show her around the company and explain the work to her." Surprised, I hesitated but managed to say, "I'm Tucker." Nice to meet you. Tucker, I'll ask you whenever I don't understand something. I look forward to working with you. She was so enthusiastic and full of energy that I couldn't help but think, she's the complete opposite of me, so outgoing. I had a bad feeling that she was going to disrupt my quiet, emotionless routine. A few days after April joined, she approached me with an intense expression and said, "I've only just started at this company, but I already have serious doubts about the current situation. The biggest issue, in my opinion, is how people treat you, Tucker. They're acting like children. Aren't you frustrated by all the harassment?" "Not really," I answered with my usual blank expression. All I wanted was to get through the day peacefully. I did my job well, and I didn't care about praise or ambition. But April wasn't having it. "If you're struggling, talk to me as your manager. Don't keep it to yourself. I want to work with passionate people." I had no intention of getting involved with anyone or letting anyone get close to me. As she spoke with such passion, I just looked at her with cold indifference. But April wasn't backing down. If anything, my attitude only seemed to ignite her determination even more. "Then I'll be your shield, Tucker. Why can't she just leave me alone?" Of course, my silent cry went unheard, and it wasn't long before my quiet, uneventful life started to unravel. Even though people called me an outsider, my main job was to assist the sales team. I used my experience to help make their work as smooth as possible. "Tucker, I want to learn from you, so please let me observe your work." As April said so, she stuck by my side and refused to leave. Sighing inwardly, I let her observe as much as she wanted. "You're really capable, aren't you, Tucker?" April said this with genuine admiration. Is that how she sees me? Some colleagues have said to me, "We're always grateful for your attention to detail and support." April didn't miss what she observed of my work and the few compliments I'd received. However, because April with her good looks kept praising me so much, the male colleagues who always harassed me were clearly not happy. Who does he think he is, acting all cocky when he's just an outsider? Such a gloomy guy getting ahead of himself. Just wait. He'll get what's coming. This is why I didn't want anyone getting involved with me. Don't put the spotlight on someone like me. I thought to myself. April meant well, but to me, it was nothing but a nuisance. And yet, she remained oblivious to how I felt. As April settled into the company, she became a popular figure thanks to her charisma and leadership. Perhaps it was because she had become more familiar with her surroundings that she started to notice things she hadn't seen before. Ignoring my worries and confusion, April continued to engage with me. Meanwhile, male colleagues who did not find this amusing escalated their harassment of me. One day, smirking, a senior colleague kicked over a trash can and said, "Hey, outsider. This place is a mess." When I stepped forward to clean it up, a junior colleague stuck his leg out. And I tripped, falling into the scattered garbage. "Oops, my bad. My legs are just too long, you know?" he said, chuckling. "Here we go again." Without a word, I started to get up and go grab a broom, but then April's voice rang out. "What kind of childish behavior is this? Can't you even clean up your own mess?" The colleagues glared at me as if to say, "Why is she defending him? We all work for the same company, don't we? Aren't some of you able to do your jobs every day because of Tucker's hard work? As employees, we should be united in striving to make this company better." Stunned by April's anger, they muttered their apologies. "Don't apologize to me, apologize to Tucker," April commanded firmly, so they reluctantly turned to me. "I apologize." Of course, I knew their apology was just for show. But if it meant I could get a brief reprieve from their antics, I would accept it. While the harassment didn't stop completely, it was less blatant. Yet when April wasn't around, they still intentionally bumped into me, knocking papers from my hands or hiding my materials. To maintain some sense of peace, I'd started taking precautions, like saving all important documents on my computer and locking the data in secure folders. Furthermore, even if the computer is opened by someone else, the important data is stored in a locked place. I would like to think that they would never do such a foolish thing, but just in case. For me, it would have been fatal if the data had been lost, so I took this precaution. One day, April approached me with a proposal. "Tucker, there's a new project coming up, and I really want you to be a part of it." "A project? I'm not worthy of that." I tried to decline. "I've seen how you work, and I'm certain of your negotiation skills and ability to handle tasks. I rely on you. It's you I want for this. So please join us?" In her earnest gaze, I saw genuine respect and hope, feelings I hadn't been shown in a long time. I thought I could hear the faint sound of my heart's defenses slowly creaking open. What had made me so closed off? The answer lay in the past, memories I couldn't erase. Deep down, I was scared. I'd always believed people would betray me eventually, and that fear had kept me locked away. One day, the department was shaken by Casey's furious voice. "April, do you realize what you've done? Because of your mistake, we've lost a major contract. You'd better prepare for the worst. Start packing your things." It seemed April had caused some trouble with an important client's contract. "I'm so sorry," April said quietly, bowing her head. "Do you think an apology can fix this? You've caused this company a major loss." Casey continued, his anger unrelenting. April's face went pale as she tried to hold back tears, but eventually, she broke down, crying openly. "Don't think crying will get you out of this. I'll let you know what your punishment will be later," Casey snapped before storming out of the department. April. Even the colleagues who used to fawn over her were now silent, intimidated by Casey's outburst. The atmosphere in the office felt tense, as though something needed to be done. That's when it struck me. Wait, wasn't Nate the representative for this client? Well, if it's come to this, I guess I'll have to step up and handle it. I wanted to help April in any way I could. I couldn't bear the thought of her leaving because of this. Nate, the client representative, was someone I had known from my previous company. When I reached out, he readily agreed to meet, so April and I immediately headed over to the client's office. Good afternoon. I'm Tucker from X Foods Trading Company. Could you please let Nate know I'm here? We've been expecting you. Please wait just a moment. Hey, Tucker. How have you been? I didn't know you were working with X Foods Trading. It's been a while, Nate. These days, I mainly handle support for the sales team. We have a lot to catch up on, so let's grab a coffee sometime. But for today, thank you for taking the time to see us. I sincerely apologize for the trouble we've caused. I know this is a bold request, but I wanted to ask if you would reconsider. Come on, don't be so formal. Look, I understand we have to keep business and personal matters separate, but I want to maintain a good relationship with you. A request from you personally? Well, how can I refuse? It's an important deal, isn't it? Yes, I promise it will be worth your while. All right, then. For your sake, I'll agree to redo the contract. Nate, thank you so much. I know you're a trustworthy guy, Tucker. If it weren't you asking, there wouldn't even be a deal to speak of. I'm counting on you. Absolutely. Thank you again. I'll take my leave now. April had been quietly observing the entire exchange, but on the way back to the office, she couldn't hold back any longer. Tucker. Just who are you? She asked, ignoring the concerned glances of our colleagues who surrounded her. There was a reason I tried so hard to live a quiet, uneventful life. I had once been betrayed by someone I trusted. That idiot, showing me such a brilliant idea before submitting it. Well, it's all about who gets there first. I'll submit it as my own. I wonder what'll happen to him. That's what Jesse, someone I thought of as a friend and rival, had said before stealing my idea and passing it off as his own. Jesse, how could you? I had been so angry I nearly swung a fist at him. But then, voices started whispering around us. Did you hear? Tucker tried to claim Jesse's proposal as his own. And apparently, he's been awful to Jesse this whole time, too. Jesse's such a nice guy for letting it slide. Wow, really? People aren't always what they seem. Poor Jesse. My fist froze midair. Jesse watched me with a smug, victorious smile. We had been equals, competitors pushing each other to do better. I trusted him completely. What had I been seeing all this time? Labeled as a thief, I was left isolated. The betrayal left a scar so deep that I couldn't trust anyone anymore. That distrust continued to haunt me. I was terrified. If I stood out again and grew close to someone, I might be betrayed once more. But I couldn't just quit working. Instead, I chose to keep my head down to avoid conflict and to do my job quietly. That's why I'd accepted the harassment with a blank expression, pretending not to care. I thought that if I kept to myself and maintained a peaceful life, I'd never have to experience that pain again. For the first time, though, my colleagues seemed to understand my circumstances, and something about the way they looked at me began to change. By taking the initiative and reaching out to Nate, I had managed to resolve April's crisis and avoid the canceled contract. April. This was only resolved because Tucker stepped in, but don't let something like this happen again. Casey said sternly. Yes, I'll be more careful. I'm truly sorry. April responded, standing tall and resolute. Tucker, this was all thanks to you. I'm so grateful. But even without knowing your past, I know you would never betray anyone. I've watched how you work and how you carry yourself, and I can say for certain that you're a person of integrity. No matter what, I'll always be on your side. April's words of gratitude and encouragement resonated deeply within me. It's not going to happen anytime soon, but maybe, I could start trusting people again. Gradually, the harassment stopped, and even my colleagues' attitudes changed. Someone is on my side. That's been a great source of courage for me. The shift in the atmosphere around me made me realize that I, too, needed to change. It was time to finally put the past to rest and face life with a new sense of purpose. To start, I approached Casey and said, "I've been working in a support role until now, but I'd like to return to being a salesperson." Tucker, I want you to take that hidden talent of yours and thrive as a salesperson. I was actually planning to ask you myself soon. Casey responded warmly, accepting my request without hesitation. Though I was a little nervous about returning after such a long time, I knew my instincts would come back quickly. With that, I was able to make my comeback as a salesperson. Tucker, you're not someone who should be stuck in a support role. Let's give it our all together, April said, encouraging me once more. With April leading the way, our department grew more unified, and everyone began working together toward our goals. Watching her rally everyone so effectively, I realized once again that April was meant to be a manager. The sense of camaraderie we now had was unlike anything I'd ever experienced, and it was all because of April's leadership. As for me, I finally started to unleash my full potential as a salesperson. Like a fish in water, I found my rhythm and began delivering results. Seeing this, the colleagues who used to harass me were astonished. Who would have thought Tucker, so-called outsider, was this capable? I'm honestly blown away. He's already surpassed my sales record. I guess I better step it up before I'm the one getting called incompetent. Tucker, you've got to teach me your tricks. The contract recovery marked the beginning of a shift. I was recognized as Tucker, the salesperson from X Foods Trading. The colleagues who had mistreated me now came to apologize, one after another. It is certainly not acceptable for a good old man to insidiously harass me because he doesn't like or understand me. But I also realized I had played my part by shutting myself off and refusing to engage. I thought staying quiet would protect me. If accepting their apologies meant we could all move forward, then that's what I would do. Call it naive if you want, but I believed people could change. The fact that I now felt this way surprised even me. Let's not have this happen again, okay? I said, extending a hand. One of my former tormentors shook it, then pulled me into a half hug, throwing an arm around my shoulders. Gone were the sneers and condescending looks. Instead, I felt their respect, perhaps even admiration, for me as a salesperson. From then on, we worked together, pushed each other, and achieved success after success. Tucker, look at this. Our company has officially surpassed the performance of your former company, April said excitedly. All of our hard work paid off. I replied, genuinely pleased. My colleagues celebrated the achievement, sharing in the joy. April had fully settled in and was now an indispensable leader. Even Casey, who used to be perpetually stressed, had been smiling more often lately. But as our company grew, a new challenge emerged. Our growth had started to plateau. Because we'd become comfortable discussing issues openly, we brainstormed solutions together day after day. We're landing contracts steadily, but how do we take the company to the next level? We probably need a bold, innovative approach that sets us apart from the competition. An innovative approach? Like expanding into new markets? Exactly. First, let's reassess our strengths and weaknesses and build from there. Under April's leadership, the team grew even more cohesive. Everyone could feel the bonds deepening. After weeks of planning, we finally outlined a new project. This time, we'll launch a global campaign to promote our area's famous maple syrup. Beyond just a pancake topping, we'll highlight its versatility in neat marinades, glazes, and more. It's a first-of-its-kind initiative, but if we succeed, it'll lead to enormous growth for the company. Let's give it everything we've got. This project required international coordination to export our products. It was uncharted territory, and we faced numerous challenges. We had to somehow clear those issues one by one, but it wasn't clear what kind of know-how we needed to handle it. Just as the team started feeling overwhelmed, April dropped a bombshell. Everyone, you're all familiar with K Corporation, right? Well, I'm actually the granddaughter of Mr. Hartman, K Corporation's chairman. The room fell silent in shock. K Corporation was one of the top 3 companies in the country. We lack the experience and know how to expand globally, so I'm proposing we leverage the connections we have. I'll negotiate directly with my grandfather, no, with Mr. Hartman, alongside Tucker. Leave this to us. With April's bold declaration, the team agreed to pursue a partnership with K Corporation. Without wasting any time, April and I set off to meet her grandfather, Mr. Hartman. Granddad, I know it might seem like favoritism, but K Corporation's support is crucial for this project. April, do you believe you have a winning chance? Yes. The maple farms in our area are mostly family-run businesses that maintain traditional methods while embracing modern technologies. The syrup they produce meets strict quality standards and is widely recognized. Regular festivals and events showcase not just the product but also its cultural value, benefiting the local community. As the first step in our company's reform, we want to focus on promoting the strengths and unique appeal of our hometown. Interesting. I'll convene a meeting with the executives in 5 days to decide whether we'll partner on this project. April, I want you to present this proposal to everyone. Granddad, let's see what you've got. Take your best team and give the presentation of your lives. It's been a long time since I've felt this excited. April's grandfather reportedly ended with a hearty laugh. 5 days later, April and I went from my company to the presentation. The people in the department unanimously decided that there was no one better qualified for the job than the 2 of us. April, Tucker, we're placing the company's future in your hands. If anyone can pull this off, it's the 2 of you. Do your best. Bolstered by the support of our team, we stepped through the doors of K Corporation's conference hall. To be honest, Tucker, I was naive. I thought, since Granddad's family, he might just approve the project on the spot. Maybe that's exactly why K Corporation is one of the top 3 companies in the country. You're right. Our presentation has to convince them. Let's give it everything we've got. Absolutely. As we stepped onto the stage, the eyes of K Corporation's executives turned toward us. I felt a twinge of nervousness, but I also welcomed it. I took a deep breath. My name is Tucker, representing X Foods Trading Company, and this is April, our manager. Thank you for giving us this opportunity today. Please review the materials in front of you as we explain the details. We'll have a Q&A session at the end. Taking turns, April and I presented the project, showcasing the materials our team had put together in record time. I heard murmurs of admiration from the executives of K Corporation. In just 5 days, they've created such a thorough proposal. This project is too good to pass up. It's promising from both an investment and an innovation standpoint. Mr. Hartman, we're in favor. One after another, the executives voiced their support. Tucker, April, well done. April, you've grown so much. The chairman applauded. This was followed by applause from the upper management. Thank you all. Let's work together to make this project a success. We shook hands with the executives, and the project partnership was officially sealed. We had a reliable ally with the K Corporation. As we wrapped up and prepared to leave, Mr. Hartman approached me. Your presentation was excellent. Tucker, was it? I'd love to have someone like you at K Corporation. What do you say? Granddad, you're hopeless. You're always trying to recruit talented people. Honestly? April said with a wry smile. Thank you for the offer, but I still have unfinished goals at X Foods Trading. Ha ha. I thought you'd say that. But mark my words, Tucker. We'll meet again one day. With a sly glance at April, Mr. Hartman smiled knowingly. Later, April confided that it was highly unusual for her grandfather to personally attend another company's presentation. I thought that would be a natural thing to do since it was a business meeting for his lovely granddaughter, but apparently, that is not the case. I would later hear the reason for this from April. The project was a resounding success thanks to our partnership with K Corporation. I was afraid of what would happen at first, but you made it. Casey, elated by the success of the project, praised April with open arms. No, my granddad is never a person who brings his personal feelings into the project. I think he was just impressed by how wonderful this project was. Oh, I'm sorry. No, first of all, we can't even apply to work with such a big company in the first place. I believe that April's connections, Tucker's storytelling skills, and the efforts of all of you have made this project a success. Exactly. It's the result of all of us, April, Tucker, and the team, working together. Our colleagues applauded April, acknowledging her leadership in bringing the project to life. This experience helped us all grow, turning a challenge into a rewarding success. In the months that followed, April and I traveled overseas to oversee the new markets we had opened. Through negotiations and expansion efforts, we both continued to grow. Somewhere along the way, my feelings toward April began to shift. What had started as trust and admiration had slowly turned into something more. The words April once said to me, "I will never betray you. I'll always be on your side," were etched deeply into my heart, like a balm over my old wounds. Our bond of trust grew stronger and stronger. I began to see April as someone truly special, and it didn't take long for me to realize that she felt the same. We had been by each other's side, encouraging and supporting one another every step of the way. It was because of April that I could finally, truly believe in someone again. One day, I made up my mind to confess my feelings. "April, could I talk to you tonight? I'd like to ask for some of your time." "Sure," she replied, looking at me curiously. Feeling overwhelmed, I quickly added, "Well, see you tonight then," and stepped away. My heart pounded so fast it felt like it might leap out of my chest. I took several deep breaths, trying to steady myself. But my nervousness didn't escape my colleagues. "You're finally confessing, huh?" one whispered with a grin. Yeah, I guess so. Don't worry, Tucker. If she turns you down, I'll take you out for drinks." I couldn't tell if he was comforting me or just looking for an excuse to drink, but somehow his easygoing attitude calmed me down a bit. For that, I was grateful. That night, as soon as I met April, I blurted out my feelings. "April, I love you. Please be with me." I was going to say the same thing. She replied with a radiant smile. "Really?" I asked, almost unable to believe it. "Yes, of course." Overwhelmed with joy, I held her hands tightly, too tightly. "Ouch, Tucker. Sorry." And just like that, we began dating. At work, we maintained our professional roles as a manager and subordinate, but in private, I took the lead. Together, we supported each other both personally and professionally, and our bond deepened every day. The bond between me and April grew stronger with each passing day, and I had definitely come to trust her more than anyone else. By the time a year had passed, I knelt before her, holding out a ring. "April, will you marry me?" She was too surprised to speak at first, but then, with tears streaming down her face, she smiled and slid the ring onto her finger. I pulled her into my arms, saying, "We'll be together forever." I saw April nod a small yes in my chest. We shared the news with our families right away. When I visited April's home, I was stunned by the sheer grandeur of her family's estate. But her parents welcomed me warmly. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a familiar face. Well, we meet again, Tucker," said her grandfather, Mr. Hartman. Granddad was more excited about this than I was. Of course. I knew I'd see you again. My instincts are never wrong. Yes. April's grandfather was more pleased than anyone else. Is this man Mr. Hartman of that K Corporation? He just loves his grandchildren, and his face was full of kindness. Soon after, surrounded by the blessings of family, friends, and colleagues, April and I were married. Not long after, April shared the news that we were expecting a child. I'll get to hold my great-grandchild? There was a grandpa with a smile on his face already. As for me, I felt the immense weight and joy of becoming a father. If any one person in my life had been missing, I would never have met this new life. A family exists because life is passed down and connected through generations. To protect this family, I knew I had to work even harder. I had friends who understood the struggles I once carried alone and supported me through it all. What we overcame together became the foundation of my confidence. I realized that people can change if they want to. It just takes the right opportunity and the support of those around them. The emotionless, indifferent version of myself no longer existed. I reflected on how fortunate I am to have people in my life. And I was once again grateful for the connections I have made and will continue to make. A major overseas deal worth $300 million is just around the corner, and there's no time left. Sweat trickled down my forehead as I stared at the ticking clock. In front of the meeting room on the top floor of our major client's headquarters, the situation had suddenly taken a sharp turn. Lily, the sales manager, known for her usual composed demeanor, was visibly flustered. The interpreter fell ill, suddenly? Yes, Michael was fine until this morning, but now he has a high fever. The interpreter, who was supposed to handle the massive $300 million deal, was now unavailable. As soon as this news broke, the atmosphere in the room became tense. But English. I might be able to handle it. I, the CEO's personal driver, raised my hand. If it's okay, I can give it a shot. Just as I said this, the meeting room door opened. The executives of the client company appeared. There's no time left. That's right. I almost forgot that you. Lily seemed to remember something and grabbed my hand. In this sudden twist of events, my unexpected appearance as a mere driver would lead to an outcome no one could have foreseen. My name is Sam, 32 years old. Tomorrow, I have a job interview that could change my life. For now, I juggle late-night shifts at a convenience store and dispatch duties for a taxi service. Scraping together money for my mother's medical bills. Though my resume is filled with titles unworthy of writing down, I didn't have the luxury of choice. Tomorrow's interview is a rare chance I managed to secure. If I land the job, I'll finally have stable income to cover my mother's treatments. I might even escape the endless cycle of part-time work. Picking up my freshly cleaned suit from the dry cleaners, I jogged through the bustling streets at dusk, preparing for tomorrow. That's when I heard a woman's voice ahead. Hey! Stop following me! Turning toward the sound, I saw a woman in a suit surrounded by several men in front of a high-end boutique. Her long black hair swayed as she clutched what appeared to be a designer bag close to her chest. Come on, don't be like that. Just join us for a drink. I know a great spot nearby. My treat. Clearly intoxicated, the men had encircled her. Normally, I avoid getting involved in these kinds of disputes, especially with tomorrow's interview in mind. But, excuse me. Before I realized it, my feet had carried me toward the woman. Lily, I've been looking for you. I stood beside her naturally, giving a slight bow. The drunk men looked at me with puzzled expressions. Oh? So, what are you? Her boyfriend or something? I'm her brother, is there an issue? I kept my tone polite, yet firm. The woman quickly caught on to my intent and joined my act seamlessly. Sorry, big brother. I got bored waiting for you and wandered around. She lightly placed her hand on my arm, her expression one of relief. Her quick adaptability impressed me. Oh, seriously? Ah, what a buzzkill. The men, looking disappointed, reluctantly left. We stood there until they disappeared from sight. Thank you very much. Once the men were completely out of sight, she let go of my arm and bowed deeply. Her profile, illuminated by the streetlights, was far more striking than I had imagined, and I found myself momentarily captivated. May I thank you properly somehow? She gestured toward the high-end boutique nearby as she spoke. This area was indeed lined with upscale shops, all well beyond my price range. No, it's really not worth mentioning my name, I replied, waving her offer off lightly. With tomorrow's interview on my mind, I couldn't afford to linger here any longer. But, excuse me, I have plans after this. Please take care. I cut her off politely, turned my back, and walked away. I could feel her gaze following me, but I didn't look back, striding away quickly. The next morning. Sam? This way, please. After waiting about 10 minutes since giving my name at reception, a female employee from what appeared to be the General Affairs Department appeared. This was the headquarters of the Anderson Group, a company with a 70-year history. It was one of Japan's leading conglomerates, boasting annual revenues exceeding $10 billion, with operations spanning electronics, chemicals, construction, and more. They also managed large-scale international deals with offices worldwide. The position I was applying for was as a driver in their vehicle department. Escorted to the top floor of the high-rise building where the meeting room was located, I couldn't help but feel a bit nervous. As I waited in the reception room, the door opened. In that moment, my eyes widened. Ah! A small sound of surprise escaped me. The woman I had helped in the downtown district last night was standing there. Next to the CEO, Mr. Anderson, she looked at me with the same shocked expression. Oh, Lily, do you know each other? Mr. Anderson asked curiously, glancing at his daughter. She looked momentarily flustered but quickly composed herself. No, this is our first meeting. Following her lead, I responded, yes, it's a pleasure to meet you. The interview concluded without any issues, and I left the company building. As I stepped outside, there she was, waiting for me. Thank you so much for last night. Not at all. You really are the person from last night, aren't you? I'm surprised. Glancing around cautiously, she spoke in a hushed voice. Could you please not tell my father? I'm actually not allowed to go out at night. Her expression was one of pleading confusion. I tilted my head, puzzled. Your father? Ah, well. Mr. Anderson is my father. My name is Lily. Ah, I see. So that's how it is. She must hold a position of some significance. No wonder she had been present during the interview. Understood. I nodded. Thank you. Then, here, she said, pulling out a neatly folded stack of bills from her small handbag. I instinctively stepped back. What? It's hush money. You're quite a remarkable person, so this much is only fair, right? Think of it as my thank you gift as well. Lily said with a beaming smile, extending the bundle of cash as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Her gesture revealed a certain ease, the kind that came from solving everything in life with money. I don't need it, I said, my voice rising despite myself. She looked at me, surprised. Why not? I just want you to keep quiet about this from my father, and it's a token of gratitude. You should take it. I don't need money, and there's no reason to report anything to Mr. Anderson in the first place. Besides, I helped you simply because I thought it was the right thing to do. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm not looking for anything in return. Not looking for anything in return. She clutched her luxury brand wallet to her chest, as though shielding her worldview from my words. You don't understand. This is about my feelings. Isn't it rude to reject someone's feelings? Her words stirred something within me. The woman standing before me truly didn't understand. Rude. What's truly rude is trying to reduce someone's kindness to a transaction. I helped you because I wanted to, not because I expected a price tag on it. Why would you try to put a value on that? What? Human emotions can't be bought with money. At least, mine can't. Lily's eyes wavered slightly, but she quickly reverted to a defiant expression. That's so dramatic. There's nothing in this world that money can't solve. Dreams, talent, opportunities, they're all created by money. Aren't you here, at your age, applying for a driver's position because you're struggling with money? Her words were spoken like an absolute truth, almost self-righteous. Money, it certainly has power. I replied, my voice calm but resolute. But it's a double-edged sword. It can blind people to what really matters, and make them lose sight of what's important. I'll never let myself be enslaved by money again. At that moment, a voice rang out from behind us. Lily, don't disgrace yourself by having such conversations in public. I turned to see Mr. Anderson standing there. Lily's surprise was evident. Father. Mr. Anderson let out a sigh. I heard everything you two said just now. Lily stammered, looking thoroughly flustered. Mr. Anderson fixed her with a stern gaze. I'm aware of all your actions. There's no point trying to cover it up now. Yes. Lily replied, her shoulders drooping like a child being scolded by a parent. The haughty air she had moments earlier had vanished entirely. I'll save the lecture for later. Sam. Mr. Anderson said, turning to me. His gaze was different now, warmer and more sincere, compared to during the interview. I'm going to hire you. What? Both Lily and I exclaimed at the same time. I want someone like you, a man of integrity. Integrity is one thing money can't buy. Thank you so much. That night, for the first time in ages, I slept deeply, feeling a wave of relief that I'd taken the first step toward a new life. Over the following days, I made sure to visit each of my part-time jobs, expressing my gratitude and formally resigning. So you finally found a place to settle, huh? Walter, my manager at the convenience store, said, patting me on the back. His words almost brought me to tears. A week passed. Starting today, I would officially begin my new job as the personal driver for Mr. Anderson and his daughter, Lily. To mark the occasion, my first task was to drive Lily, the sales manager, from her home to the company. Good morning, Sam. Good morning, ma'am. I look forward to working with you. I replied, bowing deeply. She let out a light chuckle. Oh, come on, you don't have to be so formal now. But it's fine, really. Relax, okay? We're not that far apart in age, so no need to be so stiff. With that, she settled into the back seat. I nodded, responding with a simple, understood, and started the car. Sam. Yes? Her voice sounded unusually stiff as she addressed me. I wanted to apologize for what happened the other day for offering you hush money. It was rude of me, and I'm really sorry. Through the rearview mirror, I saw her face, genuine regret evident in her expression. Please, don't worry about it. No, I need you to worry about it. I used to think money could solve anything. But after what you said, I've been thinking about it a lot. And I realized I was wrong. It's fine. I might have spoken too harshly as well. I said as the car stopped at a red light. But I was surprised. When you called me Lily that day, it just so happened to be my real name. What a coincidence. It feels like fate, doesn't it? Maybe we were meant to cross paths somehow. Maybe so. I replied, finding myself smiling back. There was something undeniably serendipitous about our meeting. Looking forward to working with you. After that, our conversations became more frequent. I exchanged so many words with her that I gradually looked forward to the daily pickup and drop-off times. Sam, you're such an unusual person, Lily said one day, breaking the comfortable silence. Why do you think that? I'd been thinking about that day. Why don't you care about money as much as most people do? Anyone else would have accepted the reward without a second thought. Her tone was thoughtful, almost introspective. I hesitated, gazing out the window at the passing scenery, debating whether to share the truth. Finally, I decided to speak. Actually, I took a deep breath. In the rearview mirror, Lily's gaze reflected a genuine curiosity. My father used to be a company president too. Really? Yes. He ran a major trading company, and the business was thriving. He was a proud man and would often say, "You're my son, and I'm proud of you." What came to mind was the executive office in a towering skyscraper. My father, seated in a large leather chair, gazing out at the city through the window. And me, standing behind him, looking up at his imposing figure. Following his wishes, I enrolled at Oxford University. He told me, "You'll take over the company someday. So make sure you study hard." He sacrificed so much to give me the best education possible, and I worked hard to meet his expectations. The car stopped at another red light, the hum of the engine filling the pause. But life is unpredictable. One day, my father's company suddenly went bankrupt. He ended up with $50 million in debt. The passing scenery outside the window felt like the fleeting memories of those days. And after that, my father disappeared. All he left behind was the debt and my mother, who had fallen ill. I gripped the steering wheel slightly tighter, the weight of the memories settling heavily in my chest. My job hunt after that was nothing short of hell. My voice trembled slightly. Even now, the memories from that time come back vividly, as raw as ever. With a degree from Oxford and several years of experience at my father's company, I never imagined it would be so difficult. The sight of raindrops trailing down the window mirrored the memories of those difficult times. At first, I was confident. I thought, with my credentials, surely I'll find something. But every response from the companies I applied to was the same. Some even returned my resume directly at the reception desk. By the 10th or so company, I started seeing through the polite rejections to the real reason behind them. Everyone knew. The son of a company president who had fled, leaving behind $50 million in debt. Who would hire someone like that? There were days when I stood in the hospital corridor, staring up at the ceiling, clutching a medical bill I couldn't pay. Nights when I sobbed, staring at my Oxford diploma. Encased in its elegant, expensive frame, the diploma had lost all its value. It had become a shackle. Some companies turned me down, saying I was overqualified. I even considered removing my educational background from my resume. But the resulting gaps only raised more questions. Everything seemed to tighten the noose around my neck. Even walking down the street, I felt like everyone was pointing at me. I feared running into people from my father's former business network. The thought of meeting old colleagues terrified me. The judgmental eyes of the world seemed to follow me wherever I went. My mother's condition worsened day by day, and I couldn't even afford her medication. That went on for months. The hospital sent overdue notices. And the nurses began giving me worried looks. A single $10 bill in my wallet felt like a fragile lifeline. At night, I wandered the city streets, desperately looking for anyone who would hire me. One time, a scout in a shady corner of the city approached me. For a brief moment, I hesitated. But then I thought of my mother's face and held back. I hate my father. Why did he run away? Why did he abandon us? And over time, I began to understand. Understand what? Lily's voice was softer than usual. Money drives people crazy. I used to think having lots of it would bring happiness. But I learned the hard way that having money doesn't guarantee true happiness. My Oxford education and my experience at my father's company. All of it was powerless in the face of financial ruin. When the company collapsed, we lost everything, our wealth, our status, and everything. But losing money also made me realize how much warmth and kindness there is in people. My co-workers at part-time jobs bent over backward to help me. The hospital gave me more time to pay my bills. I was saved by human kindness over and over again. That's why I understand now. Having enough money to live a normal life is all you really need to be happy. You're right. Sam, you have a clear sense of what matters. I didn't understand anything. I'm so sorry. In the rearview mirror, Lily's expression reflected genuine regret. No, actually. Actually? I'm glad I was able to help you that night, Lily. It wasn't about money, but I was just happy to make a difference for someone in need. Sam. That's why I apologize for being so emotional at that time. I didn't do it for the money. I just wanted to help someone who was in trouble. The car was enveloped in a calm, quiet atmosphere. After a while, Lily spoke in a soft voice. I want to change too. What? I want to change the version of me that believed money was everything. I want to be like you, Sam, someone who values people's feelings. Her words made me smile despite myself. But, life without money can be difficult. Huh? Well, because now I'm earning a steady salary and can finally afford my mother's medical bills. I joked without thinking, and Lily chuckled softly. After that, I steadily earned trust as a dedicated personal driver. Sam, you're really attentive. Lily remarked one day. It was after I had planned a route to avoid traffic, ensuring she would get to her next meeting location on time. Thank you. But I'm just doing what I should. I replied modestly, catching her warm smile in the rearview mirror. It's not something everyone does. Paying attention to schedules, weather, traffic, it takes a special kind of talent to be so considerate. Her words brought back memories. Actually, as the car stopped at a red light, I decided to share a story from my past. In the past, my family also had a driver. Oh, that's right, your father was a company president, wasn't he? Yes. His name was Robert, and he was an incredible person. I pictured Robert, always standing tall, with a calm smile. Whenever it looked like rain, he'd make sure to keep an umbrella in the car. He was always ready to adapt to sudden schedule changes. At the time, I thought that was just normal. I gazed out at the passing scenery, my voice tinged with nostalgia. But now, being in his position, I finally understand. Everything he did was out of thoughtfulness and care. My grip on the steering wheel tightened slightly. He checked schedules, watched the weather, researched traffic conditions. Everything was a result of thinking deeply about how to help others. I didn't realize it until I started doing the same work. I see. That's wonderful. Lily's gentle voice filled the car. In the rearview mirror, her expression looked almost proud. People who can recognize those things and use them to grow are remarkable. I think you're amazing. Her words sent a quick surge of warmth through me. Things we take for granted often turn out to be acts of kindness. Realizing that might be part of growing up. She looked out the window, her tone contemplative. And I realized something too. What you said to me that night made me confront my arrogance and my reliance on money to solve everything. No, it's not. I tried to protest, but Lily gently cut me off. It's okay. It's true. But I'm glad I realized it. Now, I want to value people's feelings more. The evening cityscape reflected in the car window. Somehow, the view felt uniquely beautiful. Hey, Sam. Yes? Let me correct something I said earlier. Lily's voice was softer than usual, with a hint of hesitation. What do you mean? When I said, I think you're amazing. Yes? The word think creates distance. Because. She paused for a moment, taking a small breath. You're no longer someone far away to me. Seeing you every day, talking with you, being with you, you've become someone very special to me. It took me a moment to grasp the weight of her words. In the mirror, I saw Lily's cheeks tinted red, glowing in the soft sunset. Or perhaps for another reason entirely. Oh, look, we've arrived. I quickly changed the subject, trying to steady my thoughts. My heart was pounding unusually fast. Yes, thank you, Lily said softly as she got out of the car. I noticed her ears were red, flushed all the way to their tips. As I watched her walk away, I realized my own cheeks were warm too. Could this feeling, this growing affection, be allowed? After all, I was just the personal driver for Mr. Anderson and his daughter, Lily. Our positions, our upbringings, and our lives couldn't be more different. Society would never approve of such a relationship. Even so, whenever I thought of Lily, her gentle demeanor and occasional innocent smiles, I was filled with a mix of longing and happiness. Her kindness wasn't born of money or privilege. It was something pure and genuine, a warmth unique to her as a person. Yet, I couldn't dwell on these thoughts. I needed to focus on my work. I couldn't let my emotions interfere with tomorrow's work. Tomorrow, an important task awaited me. I needed to reset my mind and prepare to face the new day. Today marked a significant event, a $300 million negotiation with Brightfield, a leading British aerospace manufacturer. A company with a 150-year history, Brightfield holds 15% of the global aircraft manufacturing market. Its CEO, Alex Martin, is renowned as a titan of European business. This meeting was about securing exclusive rights to supply a specialized alloy for next-generation aircraft production. With Mr. Anderson and Lily in the car, I gripped the steering wheel carefully, feeling the weight of responsibility. The atmosphere inside the vehicle was more tense than usual. Lily had mentioned that this was one of the largest deals their company had ever pursued. I parked in the underground garage of the hotel where the meeting was to take place. The car was filled with a unique air of anticipation and gravity, reflecting the magnitude of the upcoming negotiation. I'll be waiting for you in the lobby. After seeing Mr. Anderson and Lily off, I inspected the area around the car. I began checking the car in preparation for their return, even inspecting the tires for any issues. Sam! A voice behind me made me freeze. I turned around, and my breath caught in my throat. Robert! His hair was still mostly black, though streaked with gray now, and his posture was as straight and dignified as ever. It was Robert, the driver who had worked for my family back when my father was president. To me, he had been more than just an employee. He was like my second father. After my family's company went bankrupt, I never thought I'd see him again. And yet, here he was. Yes, it's me. I can't believe I'm seeing you here. I'm just as surprised. It's really you, Robert. Robert was wearing a suit with the Brightfield Company insignia. It turned out he was now the driver for today's business counterpart. To think we'd meet again. I'm so glad. I couldn't help but speak with excitement, my voice carrying genuine joy. His warm gaze and gentle smile were just as I remembered. It felt like flipping through an old photo album and finding one of its pictures come to life. I feel the same. Sam, how did you end up here? There was a hint of curiosity and confusion in Robert's voice. Well, I'm working as a driver for this company now, I explained, handing him my business card. Robert glanced at it, his eyes widening slightly in surprise. A driver? Yes, it's a long story, but it's thanks to you, Robert, that I chose this job. Thanks to me? Yes. Watching how you worked up close. I didn't realize it as a child, but now I understand. I see how incredible your work was. The words poured out naturally. I had always wanted to express my gratitude. And now, all those feelings rushed to the surface. You cheered me up with stories when I was feeling down. You always had warm drinks ready in the car when my father worked late into the night. Each gesture was small, but every one of them showed a thoughtfulness that truly cared for the people you served. I've come to realize how much I learned from you. And because of that, I can take pride in my work now. It's all thanks to you, Robert. Speaking with heartfelt sincerity, I noticed Robert looking slightly uncomfortable. No. Robert trailed off, his words faltering as he averted his gaze. There was an unmistakable unease in his demeanor, a subtle restlessness in his movements. Just then, a Brightfield employee called out for Robert. "Excuse me. I have to go." Robert bowed slightly and headed toward the employee. The reunion was brief, but my heart remained full of excitement and joy. Still, I couldn't help but feel a tinge of concern over Robert's uneasy reaction. At that moment, Lily hurried back toward me, looking flustered. "Sam, we've got a problem." "What happened?" The entire negotiation and contract discussion today are in English, but Michael, the interpreter, suddenly fell ill. We're scrambling to find a replacement, but... Seeing her panic, I hesitated for a moment before speaking. "If you'd like, I could help." "Ha! If you're okay with me, I'd be happy to join as a stand-in." Lily's eyes widened in surprise. "That's right. Sam, you're an Oxford graduate. You speak English, don't you?" Her excitement caught me off guard, but I'd rather be seen as useful than as someone who couldn't contribute. "Yes, although I'm not as skilled as a professional interpreter, it might be better than nothing." "No, it'll be great. Come on, hurry." Following Lily into the building, I entered the meeting room and opened the door. "Wait. Sam? Is that you?" The person who turned around called out in surprise. "Jack." Standing before me was Jack Davis, a classmate from my Oxford days. Our dorm rooms had been next to each other, and we had spent countless hours together in class and after school. "I can't believe we're meeting here." "Yeah, what a coincidence. Not since last year's party, right?" "Exactly. So, you're Brightfield's representative for this deal?" "That's right. Good to see you again." The sight of Jack's face brought back vivid memories of one particular winter. Late at night in the library. Snow was falling steadily outside the windows. Jack, pale and visibly shaken, had confessed everything to me. "My research data for the thesis. I think it's all wrong." There was only 1 month left until the submission deadline. Jack, who had spent a year gathering data, had just realized that his entire method of analysis was fundamentally flawed. He was crushed. "It's impossible to finish in time. I'll have to repeat the year. And if that happens, my father will." As someone who carried his family's expectations and consistently ranked among the top of our class, this was the biggest crisis of Jack's life. "Don't give up. I'll help you." And so, our battle began that night. We locked ourselves in the library, fully immersed in reanalyzing the data. Thanks to the financial analysis skills I had learned from my father, I was particularly adept at this kind of work. Sacrificing sleep, we worked together to devise a new approach and revalidate the data. Night after night, I encouraged Jack whenever he was on the verge of giving up. "You can do this, Jack. I know you can." Jack later told me how much those words had saved him. In the end, his thesis received the highest honors in our department. His innovative analytical method was praised by his professors. Now, Jack stood before me in a well-tailored suit, smiling brightly as he approached. As Jack and I chatted casually in English, both Mr. Anderson and Lily watched us with surprise. "You two know each other?" "Yes. We were university classmates." Our dorm rooms were next to each other, and we were very close. That's reassuring. Mr. Anderson nodded in approval. Sam, I trust you'll handle this well. Can I count on you? Of course, I'll do my best. Today felt like a day of reunions. I met first with Robert and now with my old friend Jack. The serendipity of it all felt like the threads of fate weaving together. With those thoughts in mind, I straightened my back and prepared to fulfill my role as an interpreter. The negotiation progressed smoothly and was nearing its conclusion. Mr. Anderson and Mr. Martin, the CEO of Brightfield, exchanged handshakes with expressions of satisfaction. Through my interpretation, their final words of agreement were communicated. Thanks to your translation, everything went smoothly, Mr. Martin said to me. Beside him, Jack nodded enthusiastically. Sam, your English is still top-notch. Thank you, I replied, slightly embarrassed. As a final check, I reviewed the contract before signing. Wait a second. My eye stopped at a particular section of the document. Well then, shall we finalize the agreement? Just sign here. Please hold on. I interrupted Mr. Martin's words, my eyes glued to a particular section of the contract, which I read over and over again. This is... What is it? Come on, we're on a tight schedule here. Hand over the contract, Mr. Martin said, reaching for the document. But I quickly moved it out of his reach. Mr. Anderson, there's a section that requires closer review. Would it be acceptable to postpone the signing and conduct a detailed examination? Mr. Anderson nodded firmly. Understood. We'll postpone the signing for today. Mr. Martin, I must ask for a re-examination and potential revision of the contract. Mr. Martin looked displeased but reluctantly agreed under the pressure of the situation. The signing was postponed for 1 week. That evening, back at the office, I stared at the contract, letting out a deep sigh. I was certain there was a hidden clause in the document that could lead to unfavorable consequences. However, I lacked definitive proof. If I caused the deal to collapse based solely on suspicion, it could harm the reputation of the Anderson Group. Yet, allowing the deal to proceed as it stood was out of the question. What should I do? Leaning on the desk, lost in thought, my phone suddenly rang. The call came from an unfamiliar number. Hello, this is Sam. Sam. The voice on the other end was one I hadn't heard in years, and it made me catch my breath. Robert. It was Robert, the man who had once been my father's driver. To hear from him now, of all times. I need to talk to you. Can we meet? There was an urgency in his voice, something pressing that I couldn't ignore. A week later. The top-floor conference room of a gleaming skyscraper was once again filled with key stakeholders. Why? Why are you suddenly saying the contract is being nullified? Mr. Martin's voice echoed through the conference room. Mr. Anderson had stated earlier, we have decided to postpone the signing of this contract, leaving Mr. Martin with no room to properly recover his composure. All the preparations we've made, this is going to cause immense damage to my company. Thank you for waiting. However, there is something in this contract that absolutely must be clarified, I said calmly but with conviction. Mr. Martin wiped the sweat from his brow with a trembling hand, his unease palpable. The certainty I had gained over the past week bolstered me. What Robert had told me. The evidence I had uncovered. Now is the time to reveal the whole truth. I began to speak, my voice calm yet resolute. Speaking in both English and Japanese, I began to explain. In Clause 7 of this contract, the English version states that all rights will be transferred, but in the Japanese version, it says only a portion of the rights will be transferred. What? Furthermore, in Clause 12 regarding indemnification, the English version stipulates comprehensive guarantees from the Anderson Group, whereas the Japanese version significantly weakens this obligation. Mr. Martin's expression hardened slightly, his composure slipping. This discrepancy places an undue burden on the Anderson Group, exposing it to risks far beyond what was anticipated. Moreover, such differences in interpretation could lead to significant legal disputes in the future. Mr. Anderson quickly scanned the contract, his expression growing serious. Lily, too, carefully reviewed the sections I had highlighted, her face reflecting her growing concern. "Mr. Martin, what is the meaning of this?" Mr. Martin fumbled for words, visibly uneasy. "No, this is just a simple translation error." "Is it really?" I pressed on, my voice steady. It's hard to believe that so many translation errors could coincidentally occur in a contract of this importance. Could it not have been intentional? A bead of sweat trickled down Mr. Martin's forehead. In the heavy silence that followed, I continued. "Moreover, this is identical to the contract that drove my father's company into bankruptcy. Yes, the root cause contract that screwed up my family. I remembered finding it while clearing out my father's empty office, the damning details glaring back at me from the page. My father's company had been a pioneer in developing advanced aerospace alloys. It was the most advanced technology in the world and was said to revolutionize the industry when completed. But the contract in question had an English clause stating all rights and technology would be transferred, while the Japanese version misleadingly claimed only partial rights would be transferred. Even the penalties for breach of contract were starkly different. In English, they were explicitly tied to the total project cost, while the Japanese version vaguely deferred the decision to future discussions. Using this contract as leverage, a massive penalty was imposed, forcing my father's company into bankruptcy. We were left with $50 million in debt. Now, before me lay a contract employing the exact same deceptive tactics. I couldn't allow history to repeat itself. I couldn't let another life be destroyed by such manipulation. My words caused Mr. Martin's expression to change instantly. Shall we go over this contract from the beginning? Clause by clause, comparing the English and Japanese versions in detail. I said, my voice calm but firm. Mr. Martin's face turned pale. "My name is Sam. I am the son of Mr. Thompson, the president of Thompson Industries. The company you drove into bankruptcy with your fraudulent contract 7 years ago." The room fell deathly silent. Mr. Martin's eyes widened in shock, a flicker of panic crossing his face. But he quickly replaced it with a cold, mocking smile. "Oh, Thompson Industries. But this is nothing more than baseless slander. That was a legitimate contract. Your father's failure is not my responsibility." Is that really the case? The deliberate discrepancies between the English and Japanese versions of the contract. The pressure on interpreters. It's all the same tactics you used 7 years ago. Ridiculous nonsense. Then tell me this. Why did our interpreter suddenly fall ill? Did you apply pressure on Michael to ensure his absence? Ha, what do you know? You don't even have any proof. Listen carefully, Sam. For a mere driver to speak so rudely to the CEO of a global corporation, it's beyond laughable, even as a joke. He pulled out a handkerchief with trembling hands, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Even in his gestures, his unease was apparent. Suddenly, he turned to Mr. Anderson. "Mr. Anderson, is this how your company treats trusted business partners? Allowing baseless accusations from a mere driver? This is a serious defamation issue. Mr. Martin, think about it. If this deal falls apart, what will happen to your company's stock value? How will your investors react? If the media gets hold of this?" Guilt weighed heavily on me. Was I causing unnecessary trouble for the company? But Mr. Anderson's face remained stern, unyielding. "Mr. Martin, please stop threatening my employee." "What? You called Sam just a driver, but if his observations are correct, this is a serious issue. I will investigate this thoroughly. even if it means staking the company's future. Mr. Anderson, what about our years of partnership? Partnership is irrelevant. Fraud is fraud. Fine. Then I'll sue this man for defamation. I'll make sure he never rises again. Oh, and I hear your mother is in the hospital, Sam? How will you manage without being able to pay her medical bills? I'll ensure you owe an amount you can never repay, just like your father. His venomous words made my fists clench with anger. Mr. Martin. Jack's voice rang out, trembling. His face had turned pale. Stop this, please. Jack. Stay out of this. That's an order. Mr. Martin's furious shout echoed in the room, his eyes glaring at Jack with the intensity of a coiled serpent. Do you want your family to suffer too? Ha! The threat made Jack's body tremble, but his eyes reflected a newfound determination. Jack struggled to find the words. Tears streamed down his face, large drops falling uncontrollably. I can't betray Sam any longer. His shout was filled with years of bottled-up torment and the resolve to finally break free. Sam! I was the one assigned to your father's company 7 years ago. Jack began, his voice shaking. He looked at me with a face full of regret. I didn't know any better then. I was just a new hire, following my superior's orders. I drafted the English version of that contract. The one with the mistranslations, just like you said, a fraudulent contract. Jack covered his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking as he sobbed. But once I was part of it, there was no turning back. Every single day, I've been haunted by guilt. The conference room fell silent, the weight of Jack's confession hanging heavily in the air. Jack's voice trembled as if he were confessing his sins. They showed me pictures of my family and told me, this is insurance. Mr. Martin threatened me. Every night, I had nightmares. I'd see Sam smile, and then it would disappear. But even so, I did it for my family. Mr. Martin glared at Jack with a face twisted in rage. What nonsense are you spouting? You have no proof. Who would believe your lies? Mr. Martin's voice thundered through the conference room, his mask of composure completely shattered. You dare speak such slander against this company, you traitor! Mr. Martin swept the documents off the desk in a fit of rage, scattering them across the room. The contract flew through the air before settling quietly on the floor. I'll destroy all of you. You and your families. His threatening words hung heavy in the air, but Jack, though trembling, stood his ground with a resolute expression. Your threats, they won't work anymore. Jack said, his voice small but steady. Sam. I'm so sorry. Jack. It's all lies. No one will believe you. I have proof. I said, my voice calm but firm. At that moment, the conference room door opened. I will testify. Robert stood in the doorway, holding a notebook tightly in his hand. Robert, you traitor! Mr. Martin's voice grew even harsher, filled with fury. When I worked for Sam and Mr. Thompson, I was already burdened with my parents' debts. It was an amount I could never repay in just a few years. Robert said, his voice trembling. His eyes were clouded with deep regret. That's when I met Mr. Martin. He told me, I'll cover your debts, and in return, I sold out Mr. Thompson's information. Struggling to continue, Robert paused, his words catching in his throat. I leaked confidential company information, particularly documents related to the aerospace alloy manufacturing technology that was under development. I took photos, little by little, every week. His voice was trembling. It was clear how painful it was for him to admit to betraying the trust placed in him. I gave Mr. Martin everything, Mr. Thompson's schedules, meeting details with clients, and everything. Thanks to that, he was always one step ahead. able to systematically drive the company into a corner. Robert bowed deeply. His back curved under the unbearable burden of his betrayal. The company's secrets were systematically leaked. Critical negotiations failed one after another. And Mr. Thompson was driven to ruin because of my betrayal. Every single day, I was tormented by my conscience. Mr. Thompson was so kind to me, and Sam. To you as well. His voice was thick with tears. No matter how many years have passed, I've never stopped regretting what I did. But when Sam said he looked up to me and modeled his work after mine, I realized how despicable my actions were. I repaid kindness with betrayal. That's enough. My voice was quiet but carried clearly through the room. Robert, that's enough. Robert lifted his face. His eyes filled with a look of surprise. Sam. Robert. I remember everything you did for my family back then. The memories flooded back, vivid and clear. Late night pickups, working on your days off, driving my mother to the hospital even though it wasn't part of your job. The memories came rushing back, like a kaleidoscope of vivid moments. That kindness wasn't a lie. Even while drowning in debt, even when pushed to the brink. Robert, you've chosen to tell the truth here and now. Large tears streamed down Robert's face, falling freely. That's enough. At those words, the dam broke within Robert. He dropped to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please stand up, Robert. I said, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. Then, with trembling hands, Robert held out a notebook. This was what I had asked him to bring. Earlier, I had requested him to provide any evidence he had of Mr. Martin's misconduct. Sam, this is the notebook. It contains records of everything, meetings with Mr. Martin and details of the fraudulent deals. And everything is documented here. You have something like that? Mr. Martin's voice cracked. And the blood drained from his face. And this too. Jack said, standing up and pulling out his phone. I recorded everything. He played the recordings. And the room filled with Mr. Martin's voice, clear as day, threatening Jack's family. The recordings also captured him coercing Robert. You bastards. Mr. Martin, don't you think it's time to give up? Mr. Anderson stepped forward, standing directly in front of Mr. Martin. Knowing Sam, I'd wager he's recorded this entire conversation as well. I nodded unequivocally. You have no escape. And don't think for a second that you'll get away with a simple settlement. Mr. Martin collapsed into a chair, utterly defeated. His years of deceit had come to an unceremonious end. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lily in the corner of the room, calling the police. Jack approached me, tears streaming down his face. Jack, I'm really sorry. When your company was in crisis, I should have done something. I could have done something, but I was part of it. It's okay now, I said, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You told the truth, Jack. That's enough. Choking back sobs, Jack bowed deeply. I'll confess everything. In court, in front of everyone, whatever it takes. By the time we returned to the office, it was past 8 p.m. Though everyone was exhausted from interviews and questioning, Mr. Anderson called me over. I can't thank you enough for what you've done today. Your judgment and sense of justice have saved this company, he said, his tone sincere. Lily nodded in agreement. Which brings me to this proposal. I'd like you to join our corporate planning department. I stared at him in shock, unable to respond immediately. Your work as a driver was exemplary, but your real potential lies in a much broader role. Mr. Anderson continued. At his words, Lily beamed with delight. I'd be so happy if you accepted. Chats in the car just aren't enough anymore. Thank you. I'll gladly accept it. Mr. Anderson nodded in satisfaction, his expression pleased. A few months passed. CEO of major U.S. corporation sentenced for fraud. Read the bold headlines across newspapers and news reports. Details of Mr. Martin's numerous fraudulent schemes and threats against employees were widely exposed, becoming a major story. The extent of Mr. Martin's misdeeds continued to come to light. On a quiet weekend, Jack visited my office. He had received a suspended sentence and had already left his job. "The verdict is out," Jack said, his voice tinged with relief. "I see. Yeah. They took my circumstances into account, but this is how it should be." His expression was free of hesitation. He looked refreshed, as if finally unburdened from the weight he had carried for years. "What will you do now?" "Actually, I've decided to work for an NGO," Jack said, a bit sheepishly. "They're focused on providing financial education in developing countries. I want to use my experience, this time, to help people." His words brought a smile to my face. "That suits you. It's a great choice." "Thanks. It's because of you, Sam. You gave me the courage to be honest with myself." Outside the window, a gentle breeze carried the fresh scent of spring. "Let's meet again." "Yeah, next time with pride." We shook hands firmly before Jack strode away with confidence. After transferring to the corporate planning department, my days became a whirlwind of change. "Sam, this proposal is fantastic." One after another, my ideas for new projects were adopted, steadily boosting the company's performance. I used the hands-on experience I gained during my time as a driver, combined with the theoretical knowledge I acquired at Oxford. I found great fulfillment in a role where I could utilize both. "As expected of Sam," Lily exclaimed with a radiant smile. We now worked on the same floor, side by side. "This makes 3 of your proposals approved." "It's thanks to your support, Lily. Don't be so modest," she said, puffing her cheeks slightly in mock frustration. Even such small gestures had started to feel endearing. "Hey, do you have any plans this Saturday?" Her sudden invitation made my heart race. "No, not really." Then, a faint blush appeared on her cheeks. "There's an interesting exhibition at the art museum. If you'd like." Her words made my face warm as well. "I'd love to. On the weekend." The museum date felt almost surreal. "This painting is beautiful," Lily said, stopping in front of a particular piece. In the dim light of the gallery, her profile seemed to glow softly. The painting's title was Arrogance. It depicted a figure in opulent clothing, staring blankly at something beyond the canvas. "Hey, Sam." "Yes?" "I used to be so arrogant," Lily began in a quiet voice. "I thought money was everything. I believed that people's feelings could be solved with money. But that night, when you helped me in my time of need, something began to change." She turned to face me slowly. "Meeting you has truly been the best thing that's happened to me." At that moment, my heart pounded loudly, as if all my emotions were spilling out at once. "Lily, me too," I faltered, struggling to find the words. But there was no need to hide anymore. "I love you too." My voice trembled, but the feelings behind it were unwavering. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes, spilling down her cheeks. Yet her expression was radiant with happiness. I love you too." In the quiet corner of the gallery, we held hands tightly. On Monday, Mr. Anderson summoned me to his office. It was almost certainly about Lily. "Sam, I know about you and my daughter." Or rather, Lily was so giddy last night that I couldn't help but ask. He said with a gentle smile, noticing my tension. "I want you to know that I fully support your relationship, Mr. Anderson." "Anne?" He stood, looking out the window. "Not immediately, but I'm getting older. I need someone I can trust to take this company into the future." Yes. I believe you're the right person for the job. What? No, I'm not. I'm nowhere near ready for that. Sam, I have no doubt you can do it. I can see it clearly. I want you to lead this company alongside Lily. I understand. I'll do my best. There was a profound sense of trust in Mr. Anderson's words. The rest of the day felt like a dream. The idea of being entrusted with the company's future seemed surreal. Could this really be happening? That weekend, late on Saturday night, my phone rang. Sam, I'm sorry to disturb you at this hour. Robert's voice on the other end was uneasy. Robert, is something wrong? Yes, it's about Mr. Thompson. My heart skipped a beat. My father. I heard from someone that Mr. Thompson has been living in a facility near Mount Rocco in Kobe. My hands began to tremble. 11 years. The years without seeing my father came crashing down all at once. Is that true? It's not confirmed, but I thought you should know. Please tell me the address. My voice shook with urgency. After a brief hesitation, Robert slowly gave me the address. I'm going right now. What? Right now? Yes. Right now. I'm going to see my father. After hanging up, I immediately called Lily. When I explained the situation, she quickly understood. Be safe, Sam. I hope with all my heart that you'll be able to see him. Her warm words gave me the strength to move forward, and I set off in the car. As I sped along the highway in the dead of night, a torrent of emotions flooded through me. These were anger, loneliness, and a deep, aching sorrow. Why did he leave without saying anything? Why did he abandon us? How much pain and loneliness must my mother have endured? Streetlights blurred into streaks of light outside the car window, each one pulling forth a memory of my father. You are my son, he once said proudly. The beaming smile he wore when I showed him my Oxford acceptance letter. The confident figure he cut when the company was thriving. All of it vanished when the bankruptcy struck. Why, Dad? I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. But now, I would finally see him again. I would be able to say everything I'd been holding onto for these 11 years. By the time I arrived at my destination, dawn was beginning to break. The facility stood nestled on the mountainside of Mount Rocco, a small and quiet retreat. At the nurse's station, I gave my father's name. The staff looked momentarily surprised. Mr. Thompson? He went out for a walk earlier this morning. He should be on the mountain trail. I headed in the direction they indicated. I walked slowly along the mist-covered trail, the sunlight filtering through the trees creating a breathtakingly ethereal scene. And then, in the distance, I saw a solitary figure. He looked thinner now with hair that had turned white. But there was no mistaking him. Dad! My voice trembled. At the sound, my father turned slowly toward me. Sam! The moment our eyes met, tears began streaming down his face. Is it really you? Dad! I was running. As the gap between us closed, a flood of emotions surged through me. The joy of seeing him again. The loneliness of being left behind. The burning need to know why. And the anger I had held on to all these years. Why did you leave without saying anything? I stopped in front of him, shouting the question that had haunted me. Do you know how much my mom suffered? How much I suffered? My words trailed off. Before me, my father bowed deeply. I'm sorry. I'm so terribly sorry, he said, his voice stripped of its former authority. He looked frail, his body visibly weakened. When he wavered on his feet, I instinctively caught him and guided him to a nearby bench. I bought a bottle of green tea from a vending machine and handed it to him. He struggled to open the cap, so I took it from him and twisted it open myself. Taking a small sip, he began speaking in a low, murmuring voice. You already know how Brightfield set me up, don't you? I saw it on the news. Yeah. I know everything now. At the time, I began to realize what Mr. Martin was doing. The discrepancies between the English and Japanese versions of the contract. The unnatural deals. It all started to make sense. My father slowly raised his face. His eyes carried the weight of deep regret. But by then, it was too late. He asked me, "What's more important, your family's lives or the company?" Back then, there were frequent accidents involving people who crossed him. I knew he wasn't bluffing. Something like that really happened. It was exactly the kind of thing he would say. Both Robert and Jack had fallen victim to his schemes. A soft breeze blew through. Amid rustling the trees quietly, my father continued his story. The only way to protect you and your mother was for me to disappear. Mr. Martin truly intended to harm you both. So, I had no choice. But why? Why didn't you tell us? I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. We're family. How could you carry that burden alone? Do you know how much I hated you for it? My voice cracked, rising with emotion. Tears streamed uncontrollably down my face. When you disappeared, do you have any idea how much we suffered? How lonely we were? Do you? My father remained silent, absorbing my words. Tears streamed down his face, too. I know. I know. Every single day, I thought about you both. I regretted not telling you the truth over and over again. He covered his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking with sobs. But I couldn't go back. All I could do was check from afar to make sure you and your mother were safe, and before I knew it, so much time had passed. The morning sunlight bathed us both. Sam, I'm truly sorry. You can hate me all you want. I caused you and your mother so much hardship and worry. He bowed deeply again. His once imposing figure now seemed so small, stripped of its former dignity. Dad. I slowly approached him. It's okay now. I don't hate you anymore. I placed my hand gently on his shoulder. What? He looked up. His eyes filled with confusion. It's enough now. I'm sorry for all the things I said earlier. The years of pent-up feelings inside me began to melt away. I understand now. You were trying to protect us. I just wish you had told us. But, I spoke slowly, carefully choosing my words. I know you were doing your best. You were scared of Mr. Martin, and you thought of us the whole time. In the distance, the sound of birdsong reached our ears. As the morning mist began to lift, a father and son sat facing each other. Dad, let's go home. What? My mom's been wanting to see you too. At those words, tears once again streamed down my father's face. But I don't deserve to. That's not true, I said, shaking my head firmly. You were trying to protect us. We understand that now. My mom's been worrying about you all this time too. So, I took a deep breath and spoke from my heart. Come home. We've missed you. At that moment, my father embraced me tightly. I'm so sorry. Thank you. His shoulders shook with sobs. I couldn't hold back my own tears any longer. Welcome back, Dad. On the sunlit trail, bathed in the gentle morning light, a father and son held each other, pouring 11 years' worth of emotions into that embrace. The sunlight filtering through the trees tenderly illuminated the scene. The path ahead was filled with challenges. The future of Anderson Group, a life with Lily, and everything else will be full of challenges. But I no longer had any doubts. As long as I kept the feelings of those dear to me close, I could move forward with steady steps. That was the most important lesson this long journey had taught me. From now on, let's continue together, Lily said. Her words were met with warm smiles from the whole family. In the quiet afternoon living room, the story of a new family was about to begin. Just hurry up and hand in your resignation. You're already fired. My manager, Harvey's angry voice echoed throughout the office. It was a $15 million deal with a major hotel chain. On the way to the meeting venue, I stopped to help an elderly man who had collapsed, getting him into an ambulance, which caused me to be late for the meeting. The contract was canceled, and the penalty was $500,000. To make matters worse, Harvey presented evidence accusing me of misconduct. I'd been working as a sales representative for a towel manufacturer for 7 years. My motto has always been quality first, and I've dedicated myself to making customers smile. But now, everything I've worked for was being completely denied. With trembling hands, I handed my resignation letter to Harvey. At that moment, I thought this was the turning point where my life would spiral downward. But then, would you consider working for our company? We'll offer you 10 times your current salary. Please. The secretary of the client company, a stunningly beautiful woman, clasped my hands tightly and pleaded. Little did I know, the path I chose at that moment would lead to unexpected encounters, resolve long-standing conflicts, and open the door to a new chapter in my life. My name is Isaac. I work in the sales department of a long-established company, Summit Textiles, specializing in fabric products, primarily high-quality towels for luxury inns and hotels. Summit Textiles is well known for creating custom-made products, utilizing advanced weaving and dyeing techniques to meet client needs. With an 80-year history, the company has upheld a commitment to quality, passing down the skills of its artisans from generation to generation. This year marks my 7th year at the company. Though I'm now considered the ace of the sales department, things didn't go smoothly from the start. When I first joined Summit Textiles, I was an inexperienced rookie who charged ahead recklessly. I am confident our products will absolutely satisfy your customers, I once exclaimed, standing up in the client's reception room without realizing it. I desperately memorized the catalog and rattled off technical terms, but I couldn't make proposals that aligned with real-life applications. Customers would often frown and think, he's too eager for someone so young. Out of desperation, I resorted to cold calling 10 potential clients a day, only to be turned away at the reception desk most of the time. But one comment from a purchasing manager at an old established inn changed everything for me. Isaac, do you truly understand fabric? They were right. All I had done was memorize information from text. I hadn't even touched the actual products. From that day forward, I practically lived at the factory. I would arrive at work early in the morning to observe the production line. I watched the craftsmen's hands carefully and sought their guidance on everything from selecting the right threads to the weaving process. Interesting. It's rare to see a sales rep so passionate, one veteran craftsman remarked. Initially, they were skeptical, but after seeing my dedication, they began sharing valuable insights. This fabric is special. It starts with carefully selected cotton from India. Depending on the day's temperature and humidity, we adjust the twist of the threads. That's why it lasts twice as long as a typical towel. And you feel that unique softness against your skin? It took us 10 years to achieve that. The information the craftsmen shared was a treasure trove of details that didn't make it into the catalog. The more I engaged with the products, the more I appreciated the excellence of Summit Textiles' creations. My changed attitude went beyond the products themselves. I traveled across the country, visiting hotels to observe how the products were actually used. What situations were they used in? What kind of detergents were used to wash them? How did customers react to them? I documented all these observations in notebooks, filling 5 of them in a single year. This effort paid off, enabling me to offer products that genuinely met customer needs. Isaac, your recent proposals have improved significantly. remarked Karen, my manager, one day. Indeed, my success rate in closing deals had increased. Gradually, I started earning the trust of my clients. The turning point came in my third year. It was when I was entrusted with handling the negotiations with Turner Trading. Summit Textiles and Turner Trading, both fabric manufacturers, had been fierce rivals for years. However, Summit Textiles was entrusted with manufacturing the new amenity products for Turner Trading's luxury hotel, Celestia Hotels. As the person in charge of the deal, I was led to the main conference room at Turner Trading's headquarters. The room was so vast that it hardly felt like a conference room, even with its imposing and elegant meeting table. Taking it all in, I hesitated for a brief moment. "Thank you for waiting." Sean, the head of the hotel business division, entered the room. I had been informed beforehand that he was the person overseeing the launch of a major hotel chain. Behind him stood a woman with a dignified and composed presence. She was Sophia, Turner Trading's renowned and highly capable secretary. I noticed her discreetly observing me, her sharp gaze quietly assessing. After we exchanged business cards, I wasted no time and began the discussion. "Allow me to explain our proposal. Please, take a look at this first." I carefully laid out the samples one by one on the table. Spring featured a gradient of cherry blossom pink, summer evoked refreshing ocean waves in indigo blue. Autumn showcased a deep crimson reminiscent of maple leaves, and winter embodied pure white with woven snowflake patterns. The 4 towels told the story of Japan's seasons, right there on the table. We wanted every guest at Celestia Hotels to experience the beauty of Japan's seasons. With that vision, we developed the Seasonal Colors series. Sean picked up one of the towels, examining it with interest. Sophia leaned forward slightly, intently inspecting the fabric. "The subtle gradation in these colors is stunning." "Thank you." It took 6 months of collaboration with our craftsmen to perfect the dye blends. Additionally, with our unique weaving techniques, the towels become softer with use, while minimizing color fading after washing. I continued my explanation, presenting usage data and detailing the special weaving techniques. Sean and Sophia exchanged occasional glances as they listened intently. "This is exactly what we've been looking for. While we'll need to iron out the details regarding pricing, we'd like to seriously consider moving forward," Sean said with conviction. Sophia gave me a small nod of approval as well. This project became the catalyst for Summit Textiles' reputation to skyrocket. Custom orders poured in, and my sales numbers reached 150% of the previous year's revenue. It was then that I earned the title Ace of the Sales Department. Even now, despite the accolades, I continue to visit the factory every week. I engage with the craftsmen, brainstorming new weaving techniques and exploring product possibilities. Those moments have become a source of genuine joy for me. Never compromising on quality for the sake of our customers' smiles. Continuing to make the right choices. This is the belief I've cultivated through lessons learned on the production floor and in building relationships with clients. I believe that the right choice means doing the very best you can for the sake of others. And I'm confident that such sincerity will always reach someone's heart. One day, during our department's monthly meeting, I projected my proposal onto the screen. Recently, we finalized a contract for the manufacturing of amenities for the new in-chain Hot Springs Inn, operated by the renowned hot spring resort Tranquil Waters. This deal is worth $15 million annually across all their locations. A wave of small cheers spread through the meeting room. Hot Springs Inn has gained attention as a new style of inn, carefully selecting the finest hot springs from across the country and reimagining Japan's traditional hot spring culture in a modern way. Our company was chosen as the manufacturing partner for this flagship project, which stands as a symbol of their vision. Securing this partnership had been a long-held aspiration for our company. We're developing original weaves for their bath towels, face towels, and yukata, which is a traditional Japanese garment, tailored to their modern Japanese brand image. Our commitment to natural materials and sustainable production processes was highly valued. In particular, our unique treatment for fabrics resistant to hot spring water aligned perfectly with their quality standards, becoming the deciding factor. As I finished my explanation, the room erupted in warm applause. However, I noticed that Harvey was the only one wearing a stern expression. He kept his eyes fixed on the documents in front of him, refusing to even glance in my direction. Humph. It's easy to brag when things go well, but don't get cocky. This was just a stroke of luck. His words brought an abrupt silence to the room. Looking up from his papers, Harvey shot a sharp glare at me. Isaac, for a deal of this magnitude, what will you do if it fails? Can you take responsibility for it? Yes, of course. I will take full responsibility for this. Oh, is that so? Everyone, did you hear that? With a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth, Harvey glanced around the room. Then, snapping the folder shut with a loud thud, he briskly exited the conference room. The remaining employees exchanged uneasy glances. The celebratory mood from earlier had instantly turned ice cold. Lately, I felt that Harvey has been deliberately shutting me out. Even last week, his behavior was noticeably strange. It was a Friday evening, and as I worked late, I passed by the conference room on my way to grab some paper for the copier. From inside, I could hear Harvey's voice. It wasn't his usual tone for entertaining clients, but it sounded oddly tense, which caught my attention. About the inspection documents, just as usual. Yes, I understand. The amount is the same as before. No, that's not acceptable. You have to follow my instructions. Harvey was speaking in hushed tones. The door to the conference room was closed, but his voice carried into the hallway, tinged with an unmistakable sense of urgency. Just then, our eyes met through the small window in the door. Harvey's face stiffened for an instant, his expression draining of color. He immediately stood up and flung the door open with force. Isaac! Why are you still here? Go home, now! His tone was uncharacteristically harsh, nearly shouting. Without a word, I left the area, sensing I had stumbled upon something I wasn't meant to hear. From that day on, Harvey's hostility towards me became blatant. I was tasked with calculating the costs for a new product, yet access to past production cost records was deliberately withheld from me. Harvey's attitude left me feeling somewhat suffocated. Even so, I resolved to pour all my energy into the job at hand. With renewed determination, I left the meeting room. Today was the day of the final negotiations with HeartSprings Inn. This was a pivotal deal, one that could significantly boost the company's performance. $15 million. The thought of such a sum made me feel the weight of the responsibility. I triple-checked my materials and left home early. I walked the route to the venue, which I had scouted the previous day. There was still some time to spare. As I was about to cross the intersection near the station, it happened. I heard a faint sound of labored breathing. Turning around, I saw an elderly man in a suit leaning against a street tree for support. His face was deathly pale, and beads of cold sweat were forming on his forehead. Are you okay? I called out as I rushed over. The man looked up at me, his expression strained, and managed a weak smile. Sorry, my chest feels strange. As soon as the words left his mouth, the elderly man's body began to collapse slowly. I caught him instinctively. Without hesitation, I dialed 911. I believe it's a possible heart attack, I explained, and the operator began asking detailed questions about his condition. After providing all the information and ending the call, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was from Harvey. Isaac! I've been calling you. Why haven't you answered? Where are you? I just got word you haven't arrived at the venue yet. I'm sorry, I'm assisting a sick person near the station. What? Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea how critical today's negotiation is? I do. I'll head to the venue as soon as the ambulance arrives. What nonsense are you talking about? Get to the meeting right now. This is a $15 million deal. On the other end of the line, Harvey was yelling. The elderly man's breathing grew more labored. How many more minutes until the ambulance would arrive? I'm sorry, but this man's life is more important. Harvey was still shouting something, but I hung up the phone. I held the elderly man's hand. I'll stay with you until the ambulance arrives. Don't worry, you'll be okay. For the next 8 minutes, until the paramedics arrived, I stayed by his side, constantly speaking to him. When the ambulance arrived, and he was placed on the stretcher, the elderly man looked at me apologetically. I'm sorry. I must have made you miss something important. No, saving a life takes priority. Please take care of yourself. After watching the ambulance drive off, I quickly checked my phone. I was already 30 minutes late for the meeting. There were 52 missed calls, most of them from Harvey. I flagged down a taxi and rushed to the venue at full speed. But it was too late. When I arrived, the executives from Heartsprings Inn had already left. According to my colleagues, they had waited for nearly an hour before canceling the contract and demanding a penalty of $500,000. They also announced the termination of all future dealings with us. When I returned to the office, Harvey was waiting for me. He wore a cold, cruel smile I had never seen before. I bowed deeply. I deeply apologized for being late to the meeting and causing the deal to fall through. However, I couldn't abandon the elderly man in that moment. Ha! Spare me your noble excuses. Listen, you're fired. What? I couldn't believe my ears. Harvey stood up and slammed a thick file onto the desk. Actually, we've uncovered proof of your misconduct, falsified cost reports, duplicate expense claims, and secret deals with clients. And there's plenty more. That's not true. I've never done anything like that. We have the evidence. Emails where you leaked company secrets to the executives of Heartsprings Inn. And this delay, wasn't it all part of your scheme? No. I would never do such a thing. Such confidence. But can you say the same after looking at these documents? Here's your signature and stamp. Are you claiming these are forgeries? Harvey spread the documents across the desk. I couldn't believe my eyes. Sure enough, the papers bore what appeared to be my signature, but I had no memory of approving such documents. As you can see, the evidence is overwhelming. Now, hand in your resignation quietly, or I'll take legal action. Harvey's eyes gleamed with triumph. Harvey, I would never. Enough. Just submit your resignation. You're already fired. Harvey's shouting echoed through the office. Something was wrong. Clearly wrong. But I had no way to fight back because I had no evidence and no options. I had saved a life. That choice couldn't have been wrong. So why did things turn out this way? Dazed, I stared blankly at the resignation letter I had written. Then, with trembling hands, I handed it to Harvey. How much time had passed since I submitted it? I had no idea. I wandered aimlessly through the streets at dusk. The faces of the people passing by looked strangely full of life. Everyone walking by seemed to have a purpose. I no longer had that. When I looked up, I realized I was standing at the crosswalk near the station. It was the same place where the elderly man had collapsed that morning. I could still hear the faint sound of the ambulance siren echoing in my head. Isaac. Suddenly, I heard a voice from behind me. Turning around, I saw Sophia from Turner Trading standing there. She still had her usual poised demeanor, but she was slightly out of breath. I finally found you. I visited Summit Textiles, but they told me you had resigned. Her earnest gaze made me avert my eyes without thinking. Yes, well, there's been a lot going on. Is it true that you were late to the meeting because you stopped to help an elderly man? What? You helped someone who collapsed at this very intersection this morning and even accompanied them in the ambulance. Isn't that right? How does she know about that? Before I could process my thoughts, Sophia continued. Isaac, would you consider working for our company? What? The sudden proposal caught me off guard. The person you helped this morning is actually the chairman of our company, Mr. Turner. The world around me seemed to spin for a moment. We'll offer you 10 times your current salary. So, please. Sophia stepped closer, closing the distance between us. Her proximity made my heart race. Wait, calm down, Sophia. 10 times? That's not something you can decide on your own. No, it's not my decision alone. If you don't believe me, you can hear it directly from Mr. Turner himself. He said he'll make time to meet you whenever necessary. Let's go. Sophia took my hand. Wait, you mean now? To the hospital. Yes. Mr. Turner has been waiting for you. The strength of her grip was surprising. Nervously, I decided to follow her. The hospital where Mr. Turner was admitted was about a 10-minute walk from the station. When we entered his room, Mr. Turner, propped up in bed, greeted me with a gentle smile. His complexion had improved dramatically since the morning. Ah, you've come. Thanks to you, my life was saved. Truly, thank you. No, not at all. Anyone else would have done the same. No, not everyone would. Especially not when they had such an important meeting to attend. I nodded silently. Mr. Turner's expression softened further as he continued. Business people today are too consumed by numbers. Of course, profit is important, but it can never replace a human life. Your decision this morning gave me great hope. He glanced at some documents on the bedside table. Actually, I've known about you for some time. Sophia has been reporting on your work. Traveling across the country to hear directly from clients. Immersing yourself in manufacturing sites, engaging with the craftsmen, and above all, refusing to compromise on quality for the sake of the customer's smile. She's told you that much about me. Yes. Sophia is an excellent secretary, and her judgment is trustworthy. That's why I've wanted someone like you to join our team. What happened this morning only solidified my decision. Mr. Turner looked at Sophia with a kind expression. Sophia, you've done a great job researching him. I wasn't wrong to trust your instincts. Thank you. Sophia nodded with a delighted smile. Mr. Turner turned back to me. How about it? Your integrity and skills would be a great asset to our company. You've heard about the compensation from Sophia, haven't you? Consider it a token of my gratitude. His words brought out a question that had been bothering me all along. Sophia, why do you value me so much? Standing by the window, Sophia slowly turned toward me. The soft light of dusk gently illuminated her profile. It's because you changed me, Isaac. What? Do you remember when we worked together on the Celestia Hotels project? At first, I thought it was just another new initiative. As a secretary, I intended to handle it routinely and dispassionately, like any other task. Sophia began speaking quietly, her gaze drifting to the view outside the window. From the day I joined the company, I'd been a secretary who simply completed the tasks assigned to me. Every day felt like a repetitive cycle, passing without much thought. She paused briefly before continuing. But as I worked alongside you on the project, I began to change. Watching you carefully analyze each piece of survey data I collected and transform it into something tangible for the customers, and seeing you not just rely on data but stay at hotels yourself to personally observe customer behavior, your sincere approach to work shook something inside me. Sophia's voice trembled slightly. What stood out the most was when you tested the prototypes. Normally, people would just review the quality assurance reports. But you said you'd take the sample home and actually use it overnight. When I asked why you'd go that far, you told me. To truly stand in the customer's shoes, I need to experience it myself. Those words left a deep impression on me. She turned to face me. Her eyes shone with a strong sense of determination. I started questioning why I worked. Was I just moving on autopilot, or could I think deeper and focus on what truly matters? I wanted to be like you, doing work that genuinely benefits others. From then on, my approach to work changed. I didn't just collect customer surveys. I read into each one's intent and emotions. Through that, I began to understand what true hospitality meant. Sophia looked directly at me. And this morning, when I heard you had helped Mr. Turner, I became certain. Your actions aren't just idealistic, but they're driven by a sincere belief. That's why I was so shocked to hear you resign to take responsibility. I couldn't bear the thought of losing someone I truly respect in such an unjust way. That's why I searched for you so desperately. Silence filled the hospital room, broken only by the soft hues of the setting sun. I noticed a small tear glinting in Sophia's eye. Almost unconsciously, I reached out and gently wiped it away with my finger. Sophia looked up at me, her eyes wide with surprise. Her cheeks were slightly flushed. It was only then that I realized what I had done. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. No, thank you. Sophia's voice was quiet, and her ears turned a bright shade of red as she looked down. As an awkward but strangely sweet atmosphere began to fill the room, Mr. Turner cleared his throat. I hate to interrupt this moment, but visiting hours are about to end. So, Isaac, let me ask you again. Will you walk this new path with us? After hearing Sophia's story, I'm more certain than ever that my instincts were right. We need someone like you. Someone with integrity and conviction. Mr. Turner's words snapped me back to reality, and I stole a quick glance at Sophia. Her gaze was filled with hope and anticipation. Taking a deep breath, I replied, "Yes. I'd be honored." My voice carried no hesitation, surprising me too. Mr. Turner nodded with satisfaction. "Thank you. Sophia, I'll leave his orientation to you starting tomorrow." "Yes, Mr. Turner." Sophia's voice was unusually cheerful. As I gazed out at the city enveloped by the night, I thought about what lay ahead. I'd be able to stay true to my beliefs in this new place. The warmth growing in my chest assured me of that. 6 months had passed since I joined Turner Trading. At first, I'd been anxious about joining a rival company. But those fears proved unfounded. In fact, the field-oriented approach I had honed at Summit Textiles became my greatest asset. This morning, I was once again heading to inspect the production line. When I arrived, Timothy, the factory manager, greeted me with a wry smile. "Isaac, you're here again?" "Yes." "How's the new equipment running?" "The equipment is running smoothly, thanks to your suggestion." By fine-tuning the temperature controls, the defect rate has significantly decreased. The familiar hum of the machinery was comforting. Over the past few months, I had gradually become part of Turner Trading's manufacturing scene. Titus, the weaving supervisor, held up a prototype and commented, "This idea of yours is fascinating, Isaac. Just changing the combination of warp and weft threads has transformed the texture so much. Previously, we increased density for strength, but by adjusting the twist of the threads and altering weaving pressure, we've managed to achieve both lightness and durability. It's also less prone to washing damage and dries faster." Yes. It was a concept shelved at my previous company, but I thought it might be possible with the advanced equipment here. I'm glad we tried it. This could cater to high-end airline demand as well. Titus admired the fabric under the light, nodding in appreciation. When I returned to the office, Sophia approached me. "The quarterly results are in. She showed me her tablet. 3 new development projects and a 150% increase in additional orders from existing clients. In the past 6 months, sales in my assigned area have been steadily growing. Sophia flipped through the data. Your work has been highly rated by the field teams. Comments like, Isaac listens carefully to our opinions, and his proposals are backed by solid technical understanding, which gives us confidence in the manufacturing process, keep coming up. In addition, there's been a growing interest from overseas. The water-saving technology you proposed has been recognized as an environmentally friendly innovation unlike anything else in the world. That's encouraging. Next, I'd like to focus on expanding internationally. Actually, there's a meeting with a Middle Eastern distributor next week. They specifically requested to meet with you. I'll be happy to attend. Please arrange the schedule. New meeting appointments kept appearing on my tablet as we spoke. It felt like there was potential to create even more exciting products moving forward. This was one of those moments when I truly felt the rewards of this work. In the 13th floor meeting room, I reviewed the materials for today's discussion. Considering new business opportunities with Summit Textiles. The moment I saw the title, my chest tightened. A meeting with my former company. Honestly, I would have avoided it if I could. But this was work. I didn't have the luxury of avoiding it. Sophia quietly opened the door. The client has arrived. Excuse me. The moment Harvey stepped into the room and saw me, he froze mid-sentence. It was our first meeting in 6 months. Harvey's eyes widened in shock. The color drained from his face. Why are you here? His voice trembled, a mixture of anger and shock. I noticed his hands unconsciously gripping his documents tightly. Sophia looked confused, glancing between Harvey and me. Coming back to himself, Harvey forced a smile. My apologies. I was just surprised to see a familiar face. Now, let me present our proposal. He placed a thick proposal document on the table. His hands, as he flipped through the pages, were visibly stiff. Your Celestia Hotels chain plans to open 20 locations nationwide this fiscal year, correct? We propose to supply all the linens for your properties. Delivery within 3 weeks, costs reduced by 25%, and a 10-year quality guarantee. This is the essence of our proposal. Is that even possible? The words escaped my mouth before I could stop myself. For high-end hotel towels, it typically takes at least 6 weeks from thread procurement to completion. He was claiming to cut the production time to less than half while also reducing costs. As for the quality guarantee, it was more than double the industry standard. Harvey shot me a cold glare, his voice sharp. Of course it's possible. At our company, we've made it happen. In just the past 6 months, Summit Textiles has undergone a complete transformation, with sales growing 200% year over year. It was true that I'd heard about Summit Textiles' rapid success. It had even been featured in industry journals. But something felt off. Given their production capacity, the proposed timeline seemed physically impossible. And offering this level of cost reduction with a 10-year quality guarantee? It didn't add up. What stood out most was the vagueness in the quality data section, something critical for high-end hotel products. I lowered my gaze to the materials. The numbers are certainly written clearly. However, there's no supporting data to back them up anywhere. Could you explain the detailed production process? That's confidential. For a split second, I thought I saw his eyes waver. Sensing the heavy tension in the room, Sophia subtly stepped in to shift the conversation. Since this is our initial meeting, we'll take your proposal back for internal review and discuss it further. Her voice carried a clear intent to wrap up the discussion diplomatically. Yes, that's fine. We'll submit more detailed figures and process explanations in writing later. He stood up abruptly, relief flickering across his face. It looked as though he couldn't wait to leave the room. A few days later, while Sophia and I were preparing for a meeting in the conference room, angry shouts suddenly echoed from the hallway. "Isaac! Come out here!" The meeting room door burst open, and Harvey stormed in, his face flushed with anger. His tie was askew, and beads of sweat dotted his forehead. "Isaac, what are you trying to pull? Stealing all our clients one by one." The sharp sound of his fist hitting the table made me freeze for a moment. Seeing my former boss in such a state left me speechless. The airlines, the luxury hotel chains, every single one of them has cut ties with us in the past 3 months. Our sales have dropped by 30%. And every single contract has gone to Turner Trading. You know our costs, quality standards, and production timelines inside out. You've been using that information to sabotage us, haven't you? You've even been beating us to market with new product developments. I have not done anything of the sort. It's true that I've drawn from my experiences at Summit Textiles, but only in terms of my approach to product development. I've never once used confidential information. Liar! Sophia stood up, attempting to calm him down. "Harvey, please, let's stay calm. Stay out of this. This is between me and Isaac. A mere secretary shouldn't interfere." His words prompted me to rise and gently motion Sophia to step back. I took a deep breath before facing Harvey. "Harvey, we haven't stolen clients. It was the clients who approached Turner Trading, asking to switch their business." "What?" We found it puzzling at first too. But after our recent discussion, the reason became clear. The terms you've been proposing are simply unworkable. The room grew tense. A 3-week production timeline for high-end hotel products is physically impossible. For premium materials, it takes 2 weeks just to procure the raw materials, another 2 weeks for weaving, and at least 1 week for quality testing. That's the industry standard. We made it possible. Then let me ask, how are you handling quality control? Durability testing, friction testing, and absorbency testing. Skipping these might shorten production time, but it would compromise quality. The same applies to the 25% cost reduction. At that price, sourcing genuine Egyptian extra-long staple cotton is impossible. Harvey's face stiffened. I retrieved a set of documents I had prepared for our next meeting and opened them. Flipping to a page, I showed it to him. We analyzed recent delivery samples provided by your clients. While the surface appears to use genuine Egyptian cotton, the core contains standard short fibers. This drastically reduces durability. Normally, this kind of analysis would be confidential. But your clients approached us, expressing concerns about quality. That's why we conducted the investigation. Harvey's face grew pale. I turned another page. And that's not all. This contract here, its quality assurance clauses are vague, and it doesn't clearly define compensation for defective products. This would leave clients in a difficult position if issues arise. I pulled a single document from the stack of materials in front of me. And here is your company's cost calculation sheet from the last meeting. It shows that the procurement cost of thread was recorded at 1.5 times the market price. Where exactly did the difference go? Stop it. Harvey's voice trembled. But I paid no mind and continued, calmly yet firmly. The difference was recorded as part of the cost of production for fictitious orders, then funneled into backdoor deals to bypass quality inspections. By cutting corners like this, you reduced costs and shortened delivery times. Meanwhile, you provided customers with contracts that waived their right to file claims, ensuring your company bore no responsibility for any problems. Harvey, does Mr. Adams, the president of Summit Textiles, know about these practices? If this kind of deceit continues, it will ultimately hurt the customers and damage the entire industry's trust. Harvey's face grew increasingly pale. What do you know? I know because I've worked on the ground. I've seen the pride and skill of the craftsman. Betraying that with practices like these is unacceptable. Shut up. This is how business works. You have to turn a blind eye to some things. That's the way adults do it. Harvey shouted. I looked straight into his eyes. Precisely because it's business, we must be honest. Betray a customer's trust, and it will come back to haunt you. What's happening now will inevitably come to light. The room fell silent, the tension thick. Sophia watched our exchange with bated breath. Harvey's expression shifted from anger to confusion. He ruffled his hair in frustration. Damn it! I didn't think you'd go as far as analyzing the products. And after all the trouble I went through to fabricate evidence and get you fired. What? I widened my eyes at his unexpected confession. Still shaking, Harvey continued. You heard me on the phone arranging the forgery, didn't you? You were always poking around on the production floor, talking to the craftsman. And you were unnervingly sharp about cost calculations. I knew you'd eventually figure out the fraud. That's why I had to get rid of you. You fired me over something like that. My words seemed to flip a switch in Harvey's expression. Something like that, you say? You wouldn't understand. In this industry, you don't climb the ladder without results. Nobody cares about the details as long as the numbers look good. I've worked my ass off to reach the top. If it means cutting quality, inflating costs, or taking kickbacks, so be it. That's what it takes to make it in this industry. The sound of his fist slamming the table echoed through the room. At that moment, the door quietly opened. What's all this noise about? A calm voice filled the room. Turning around, I saw Mr. Turner standing in the doorway. Sophia, when you didn't show up at the scheduled time, I came to check on you, but... Mr. Turner's words trailed off. He had noticed Harvey's presence. Harvey. At the sound of that voice, Harvey's body stiffened. The color drained from his face. His lips trembled. Father. The word escaped his lips in a barely audible whisper. Mr. Turner is Harvey's father. A heavy silence settled over the room. The two men stared at each other as if time had frozen. Harvey's hand unconsciously gripped the edge of the table. As if being pulled back into old memories, he stared at Mr. Turner with vacant eyes. What a coincidence to meet you here. Perfect timing. Listen up, I'll tell you how I clawed my way up after you abandoned me. At that moment, the emotions Harvey had suppressed for years burst forth like a dam breaking. Harvey lost his mother when he was very young. In a stark white hospital room, he held her hand tightly. At just 6 years old, he couldn't understand why his mother's face was growing pale or why the nurses were rushing around so frantically. All he could feel was the coldness creeping into her hand, a sensation that etched itself deeply into his heart. Harvey. I wish I could have held on a little longer. I'm sorry. His mother's frail voice echoed through the hospital room. Those were the last words she left for Harvey. After her death, Harvey was taken in by his maternal grandparents. Even though he had a father, Harvey couldn't understand why he wasn't with him. One day, while knitting, his grandmother explained gently. Your father, he's too busy running the company. He said he doesn't have the capacity to take care of a wife and child. Did my father abandon me? His grandmother didn't answer. She simply stopped knitting and gently stroked young Harvey's head. To his 6-year-old mind, her silence was confirmation. From that moment, the memory of holding his mother's hand in that sterile hospital room began to transform into a burning desire for revenge. Harvey enrolled in a commercial high school and later studied business administration at university. He had one clear goal: to exact revenge on his father and Turner Trading. The company he chose over his wife and son, the Turner Trading he cared for more than his family. I'll destroy it. then he'll know how it feels. With this resolve in his heart, Harvey applied to Summit Textiles after graduation. During the interview, he played the part of an ambitious young man. "I'll make Summit Textiles surpass Turner Trading." Unbeknownst to them, his words were a declaration of revenge. After joining the company, he was always the first to arrive and the last to leave. He consistently ranked at the top in promotion exams. Clients highly valued him, and he delivered one success after another. Eventually, he rose to the position of department head. However, it was around this time that Harvey's performance began to stagnate. Meanwhile, Turner Trading's profits continued to climb steadily. Seeing the gap widen, Harvey grew increasingly anxious, realizing that instead of achieving his revenge, the distance between them was only growing. "What am I missing?" He stared at performance reports in the office late into the night. Suppliers demanded price cuts, and internal pressures mounted to improve profit margins. One day, a supplier made a suggestion. "Why don't you inflate the production costs slightly on this contract?" It started as a small deception. Inflating production costs, loosening quality standards, falsifying inspection data. Gradually, his methods grew bolder. "This way, I'll definitely surpass Turner Trading." It was during a call to arrange a forgery that I happened to walk in. Harvey panicked. Of all people, Isaac had to hear me. If this keeps up, he'll uncover everything. Driven by fear and desperation, Harvey decided to force me out of the company. Late one night in the meeting room, he sat before an envelope. Inside was a collection of old invoices he had obtained from the accounting department. "If I alter these, I can fabricate all the evidence I need." Inflated expenses, duplicate travel claims. His hand trembled slightly as he wielded the pen. He rewrote figures and forged stamps. The guilt gnawed at him momentarily but was quickly brushed aside. "This isn't enough." From his desk drawer, he retrieved data that he had secretly copied from my computer and emails sent to external contacts. He altered the recipient and contents to make it appear as though I had been in close correspondence with Heartsprings Inn. He went as far as fabricating file names to suggest I had shared classified information, such as quality data and cost calculations. Finally, he crafted a fake contract stamped with a forged seal resembling mine. It was the ultimate piece of evidence, framing me for breach of confidentiality. Moreover, a perfectly timed opportunity presented itself to Harvey. I was late to the critical negotiation with the Heartsprings Inn Group. As a result, the deal was cancelled. It's as if the heavens are on my side. Isaac ruined the negotiation and caused massive losses for the company. With this, no one will question the forged evidence. It's perfect. Amid the commotion in the office over the cancelled contract, Harvey wore a sinister smile. Having recounted everything in one breath, Harvey let out a long exhale. Then, he turned a sharp glare toward Mr. Turner. "I hate you." My mother's last words were, "I'm sorry." She apologized for leaving me behind. But the one who should have apologized wasn't her. It was you. Mr. Turner's face clouded with pain. "You never visited her in the hospital, not even once. On the day of her funeral, you didn't show up. You were too busy running your company. Weren't you? You didn't care about us, no, you probably thought we were a burden. That's why you didn't take me in." Harvey's bitter smile deepened as he continued. "My mother lost her life because she was trying to protect your company. I could never forgive you for disregarding her life. That's why I decided I would surpass you and destroy your precious company. That became my life's purpose." Tears gleamed in Harvey's eyes. The resentment in his voice sounded as though it had been nurtured from childhood, growing heavier with each passing year. Joining Summit Textiles was all part of my plan for revenge. I worked hard, climbed the ranks, and reached this position. I didn't care what methods I used, be it fraud, forgery, or worse, it was all for one purpose: to bring you down. As Harvey finished his confession, he was left gasping for breath, as if he had expended all his energy. His face reflected a mix of anger, sorrow, and an indescribable complexity of emotions. At that moment, Sophia stepped forward. "Mr. Turner, I apologize. I know you asked me not to say anything, but I believe it's time to share the truth." Sophia's usually composed voice trembled slightly. Mr. Turner closed his eyes and gave a small nod. Taking his signal, Sophia looked directly at Harvey, her gaze unwavering. "Harvey, I've heard about the time when your mother, Mr. Turner's wife, passed away. She suffered from an incurable disease. Mr. Turner searched tirelessly for treatments. He consulted doctors worldwide and tried every possible option. He visited the hospital every day. But ultimately, she couldn't overcome her illness." Harvey's expression shifted subtly. "I was asked not to reveal this, but I believe you have the right to know. Your father, Mr. Turner, did everything he could to save her?" A heavy silence settled over the conference room. The long years of distance between father and son made the quiet even more profound. "And regarding why you weren't taken in by Mr. Turner, I'd like to explain that as well," Sophia continued cautiously. Harvey's gaze snapped toward her, his eyes searching for answers. Sophia took a deep breath and chose her words carefully. "Your mother's parents were strongly opposed to her marriage to Mr. Turner from the beginning. They thought he was too young and unstable as a businessman. Despite their objections, they married, but the tension never disappeared." Mr. Turner's face twisted with the memory of that pain. "After your mother passed away, your grandparents insisted, 'We will take Harvey in. Someone consumed by the business cannot care for a child.' They demanded that Mr. Turner sever ties completely. My grandmother said that." Harvey's voice trembled. "Yes. Mr. Turner tried to persuade them, but they refused, saying it was karma for causing their daughter's death. Even his request to have occasional contact with you was denied. The only thing he could do was watch over your growth from afar." Harvey's expression was overtaken by surprise at Sophia's words. She stepped forward, meeting Harvey's gaze directly. In her eyes burned a steadfast determination. "However, Mr. Turner never abandoned you. When you wanted to attend a commercial high school, he anonymously covered all your tuition through a scholarship. The same was true for your university education in business administration. You might believe you achieved everything through your own efforts, but the truth is, he was always there, supporting you." "That can't be." Harvey's voice shook. "When you joined Summit Textiles, Mr. Turner was worried but said, 'If it's the path Harvey chose, it must have meanings.' He chose to continue supporting you from a distance. With every promotion, he celebrated silently. 'That's my son. A hard worker, just like me,' he'd say. But he couldn't tell you any of this. All he could do was quietly watch your progress." Sophia's voice grew stronger as she spoke. Tears streamed down Harvey's face. Sophia turned to glance at me briefly before returning her gaze to Harvey. "And the man who saved Mr. Turner's life, your father's life, was none other than Isaac, the one you wrongfully forced out. Despite the critical importance of his business meeting, he sacrificed everything to save a life. That act reflects the very value your father has cherished, compassion for others. Yet, you framed and exiled Isaac, the person who embodied the heart your father values most." The room was enveloped in deep silence. Harvey's shoulders began to shake as his tears continued to fall, his emotions overwhelming him. "Father." The words escaped Harvey in a hoarse whisper. This wasn't how it was supposed to be." Harvey's words faltered, and he lowered his head. Tears quietly streamed from his eyes. "I've been so wrong all along." His trembling hands covered his eyes, his voice shaking with emotion. "Father, I've been wrong all along." The words escaped him in a hoarse whisper. It was the voice of a child seeking comfort from a parent. "I've hated you for so long. I blamed you for everything, losing my mother and leaving me behind. I thought it was all your fault. But I didn't know anything. I didn't know you tried to save her. I didn't know you wanted to take me in. Anne, I didn't know you were watching over me all this time." With a trembling voice, Harvey spoke these words as he bowed deeply. "I'm sorry. My hatred for you drove me to do unforgivable things. I committed fraud to boost the company's numbers. I drove Isaac out of the company with fabricated evidence, all to get revenge on you. But I was wrong. My actions hurt innocent people, including the man who saved your life. I'd been such a fool." Harvey's words faltered. At that moment, Mr. Turner's large hand gently rested on his son's shoulder. "Harvey, the one who should be apologizing is me." At the sound of his father's voice, filled with deep affection, Harvey lifted his face. "Father, I failed to protect you. I couldn't save your mother, and I couldn't hold on to you. As a businessman, I was able to secure the livelihoods of my employees, but I failed at the most important thing, bringing happiness to my own family. Watching you grow from afar, unable to be by your side, was a torment I can never describe. But that was the price of my own failings." Mr. Turner gazed at Harvey, his eyes brimming with tears, ready to spill over at any moment. Large tears rolled down Harvey's cheeks. "Father, please, let me start over. I'll return to Summit Textiles and reveal all the wrongdoing. I'll apologize to everyone I've hurt. I'll choose the right path, the one my mother would have been proud of, and I'll walk it." Hearing this, Mr. Turner gave a gentle nod before pulling his son into a firm, heartfelt embrace. For the first time in decades, father and son were united by a genuine bond. Sophia and I watched the scene in silence, moved by the reconciliation before us. The golden light of the setting sun streamed through the conference room window, casting a warm glow on the two of them. Harvey turned to me. "Isaac, I owe you an apology as well. My foolish actions caused you so much pain. There's no need. I understand your feelings now." Sophia quietly opened the door to the conference room. Gently encouraged, Harvey stepped out into the hallway. As I watched his retreating figure, I silently wished for him to find his way down the right path. 3 months passed. At Summit Textiles, a large-scale internal investigation was launched following Harvey's revelations. He confessed to all the wrongdoing without hiding anything. Taking full responsibility, he stepped down from his position and chose to start over from the factory floor. This time, I want to truly honor the dedication of the craftsman. On the factory floor, Harvey's expression no longer showed the desperation or resentment it once did. He approached each step of the process with sincerity, determined to regain the trust he had lost. Gradually, Harvey also began rebuilding his relationship with his father, Mr. Turner. At a recent technical exchange event, where craftsmen from both companies showcased their skills, Mr. Turner sought Harvey's opinion. "Harvey, what do you think of this weaving technique? There's still room for improvement in balancing sustainability and quality." Seeing his son's passionate engagement, Mr. Turner nodded with evident satisfaction. It seems Harvey has truly found his way back to the right path. Sophia murmured softly with a smile. I nodded quietly. Even if one strays from the path, the courage to recognize their mistakes and make amends ensures they can always start anew. Harvey's transformation spoke volumes about that truth, more eloquently than words ever could. Meanwhile, my work at Turner Trading was going smoothly. Since the incident with Harvey, my dedication to the field had garnered recognition from Mr. Turner. I was now entrusted with large-scale projects in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. Isaac's proposal for the eco-friendly new material has received high praise, Sophia said, spreading out the reports. Her satisfaction was evident as she reviewed the sales figures, which had increased by over 200% compared to the previous year. Sustainability isn't just a buzzword, is it? One of the new employees remarked in awe. I smiled. No, it's not. Balancing environmental considerations with quality may seem like contradictory goals, but achieving both creates true value. Mr. Turner had been watching over my work with warm approval. Thanks to Isaac, our company has started to change. During the recent management meeting, I felt a bit embarrassed when those words were said. Still, I felt a sense of fulfillment. Prioritizing quality while being environmentally conscious. It's by no means an easy journey. But by sincerely engaging with the craftsmen and continuously listening to the voices of our customers, I believe the answers will always reveal themselves. With that conviction, I head to work every day. On my desk lay a stack of proposals for new projects. Yet, even with everything appearing to go smoothly, there was still one thing I had yet to resolve. After work, I mustered my courage and approached Sophia at her desk. She was organizing some documents. "Sophia, do you have any plans for this evening?" She gracefully lifted her gaze. "No, nothing in particular." "Then, would you like to join me for dinner?" "Oh. Yes, I'd love to." Sophia quickly tidied up her documents, grabbed her bag, and stood beside me. We ended up at a restaurant near the office. After finishing our meal, as the coffee was served, I decided to broach the topic. "Sophia, I want to thank you again for that day when I was forced to leave Summit Textiles. If you hadn't found me at the station and searched so tirelessly, I wouldn't be where I am today." The rich aroma of coffee rose from the white cup. Sophia gently lowered her gaze. "Not at all. I just didn't want you to be unhappy." "No, Sophia. You also helped mend the relationship between Harvey and Mr. Turner. You created the opportunity to clear up years of misunderstanding. And because of that, the suspicions against me were cleared. It's all thanks to you." Sophia's eyes shimmered with emotion. "Do you think I've been able to help someone? Have I become someone like you, Isaac?" To that question, I answered without hesitation. "Sophia, you've changed my life. And I hope we can continue to help others together from now on." "Isaac." Her cheeks flushed faintly. The soft restaurant lighting gently illuminated her profile. She wasn't the composed secretary I usually knew, but a charming woman, full of warmth. "Sophia." Her eyes wavered slightly. "I love you, not just as a colleague, but as a woman. Will you walk through life with me from now on?" "Yes." "I love you too, Isaac." Atop the table, our fingers intertwined softly. Outside the window, a sky full of stars glimmered. In life, there are moments when doing the right thing doesn't seem to pay off. I had missed an important meeting to help a collapsed elderly man. As a result, I lost my job. At that time, I doubted countless times whether the choice I made was truly the right one. But a path chosen with conviction will always resonate with someone's heart. The decision to prioritize a human life moved both Sophia and Mr. Turner and ultimately led to reconciliation with Harvey. To do the best you can for others. That sentiment will always reach someone. I firmly believe that. By the way, I saw your father recently, and he looks just as dumb as you. I bet he's just another high school graduate with no education. Isn't he? What did you just say? I couldn't suppress the surge of anger those words triggered. This guy, who had recently replaced the former company CEO, was the kind of man who looked down on others for their educational background. But insulting not just me, but my father as well? That was crossing the line. Do you even understand the difference between what you should and shouldn't say? And you, how dare you talk like that to the CEO? You're fired, you hear me? Fired. Fired. Just delete all the work data you've done so far and get out of the company. You're just a low education nobody. So your work probably wasn't worth much anyway. I had nothing left to say. If he wanted me to delete everything, fine. It was his decision. I wondered if he had any idea what would happen to the company because of his own command. He probably has never imagined it. My name is Alex. After graduating high school, I joined a logistics company and have been working there ever since. Originally, I had planned to go to a college in the city after high school. But I gave up on that path and chose to work instead for one simple reason. It all started when I was still a high school student. Alex, they found out your father is sick. What? Sick? Is he going to be okay? For now, yes, but he'll need to be hospitalized. No way. On my dad's side of the family, they've always been prone to health problems. My grandmother, my dad's mother, also succumbed to the same illness. I do remember hearing something like that before. At the time, it felt distant, like a story that could happen but wasn't really part of my reality. Now, seeing my dad fall ill, I was hit hard by the terrifying weight of our family's genetic history. If my dad has to be hospitalized, what are we going to do? About the house, about everything? I don't know what to do. My mom let out a weary sigh. It wasn't just my dad who had poor health in our family. My mom also struggled with health issues and couldn't work full-time outside the home. She could barely manage a part-time job, and it was clear she wouldn't be able to support the whole family. There was no way I could go to college in this situation. I've made up my mind. I'm going to get a job. What? But you always said you wanted to go to college. It's okay, you really don't have to worry about us. This isn't about worrying or not worrying. I want to work. Alex, don't worry. I'll just start my career a little earlier than most people. It was true that I had wanted to go to college. But going to college costs a lot of money. My dad's hospital bills were piling up, and my mom could barely work. In that situation, going to college just wasn't an option for me. I owed them for everything they had done to raise me. Changing my path didn't feel like much of a sacrifice in that sense. The real challenge came after that. Because of the timing of my dad's illness, finding a job was incredibly difficult. Job hunting for high school graduates had long since ended, and companies that hired people like me were hard to come by. Well, technically, there were plenty of opportunities. But most of them were in construction, trucking, or caregiving, fields that demanded physical labor. If I didn't care about the type of job, I could have easily found work anywhere. However, probably due to my family background, I wasn't very physically strong, which was a major drawback. Time wasn't on my side, but if I rushed into a demanding job and ended up collapsing myself, it would defeat the entire purpose. I had to be careful and selective with my job search. Using employment offices and job search websites, I desperately looked for a job that suited me. That's when I found my current position at the logistics company. Logistics often brings to mind physical labor like transportation and processing. But back then, there happened to be an opening for an administrative role, so I applied for that position instead. With management and office work, I knew I could handle it. As it turned out, the job suited me perfectly. At first, I struggled to learn the ropes, but once I got used to it, it wasn't difficult at all. Sure, there were challenges, but compared to physical labor, it was much easier. Perhaps because I was a high school graduate, my colleagues often looked out for me. Hey Alex, you've already gotten this far? Yes. I figured I could finish it up quickly. You're a fast learner, it's a big help. But don't overwork yourself, make sure to take breaks, okay? Yes, I'll make sure to rest as I go. Your health is everything. Oh, here, you can have this. I got an extra one from the vending machine. Really? Thank you so much. Thanks to such supportive interactions, I quickly became part of the team. It wasn't just my effort, and it was proof that this is a good company. If it weren't, they wouldn't have taken the time to teach me thoroughly, nor would I have grown so much. Not only did my colleagues treat me kindly, but my work was also recognized, and I was gradually entrusted with more responsibilities. I found fulfillment in the work itself, and I genuinely felt I had made the right choice. Then one day, Mr. Kennedy, the CEO, is going to be hospitalized. What? Hospitalized? Is he going to be okay? Yeah, it's not an urgent illness, but he'll need to stay in the hospital for a while. Hospitalized. It immediately reminded me of my dad. Just like Mr. Kennedy, my dad had suddenly been hospitalized. It felt too close to home to brush off as someone else's problem. When I mentioned my father's situation, my colleague looked surprised. It's the same illness as Mr. Kennedy's. Really? Yeah. I hope your dad recovers soon, Alex. Thank you. But what's going to happen to our company while Mr. Kennedy is in the hospital? Don't worry about that. It seems his son will be stepping in as the new CEO. He has a son? That was news to me. However, Mr. Kennedy is at an age where having children wouldn't be surprising. It makes sense that he has a son. His son's name was Randall. He was 3 years older than me, so not much of an age gap. His father had fallen ill with the same condition, and he was around my age. That made me feel a certain sense of kinship with him. He had been working at a small company until now, but his father's illness prompted him to resign. It seems he's joining our company as a result. I wondered what kind of person he was. Then, the day finally came. I noticed someone unfamiliar at the company and quickly realized it was Randall, the new CEO. I decided to introduce myself and walked over to him. Nice to meet you. You're the new CEO, Randall, right? I'm Alex. Alex? Instead of responding to my greeting, he blatantly stared me up and down. What's going on? Did I do something strange? Or is there something on me? Just as I was about to check myself, Randall suddenly snorted with laughter. Oh, I know who you are. You're Alex, the high school graduate, right? What? A mere high school graduate? How did someone like you even get hired here? Was my dad blind when he made that decision? What do you mean by that? It means having someone as uneducated as you here is embarrassing. And not understanding that is exactly why you've stayed so low on the ladder. I couldn't believe it. Was he seriously insulting me the first time we met? And over my education, no less. Stunned by the sheer audacity of his words, I stood frozen as Randall turned and walked away without another glance. I never expected to be insulted like that. From that moment on, Randall's attitude toward me remained consistently condescending and dismissive. One day, despite there being janitorial staff, I was made to clean the restroom with the remark, "There's no work suited for someone with low education." On another day, I was handed menial tasks that someone else should have done, with the excuse, "I'd rather give work to someone with a proper education." And that wasn't all. Even though I had made it clear I couldn't do physical labor, he still made me organize the warehouse. To be treated so differently just because of my education. It was unbelievable. I wanted to complain, but he was the new CEO, after all. Not to mention, he was the son of Mr. Kennedy, someone I deeply respected. Swallowing all the things I wanted to say, I continued to do the work as Randall demanded. By the way, I saw your dad. It came out of nowhere. Randall approached me with a smug grin, and I braced myself, thinking he was about to dump more chores on me, but instead, he said this. "You saw my dad." "Where?" "At the hospital." I saw him when I was visiting my dad. I knew they had the same illness, but I didn't expect them to be in the same hospital. While I was still processing this, Randall continued. "He looked as dumb as you do. I bet he's just another high school graduate. Or maybe he didn't even finish high school?" His words dripped with condescension, and I couldn't hold back anymore. He could say whatever he wanted about me. But dragging my father into it, insulting him for no reason? That was too much. "You're crossing the line. What do you even know about my father?" What? I'm just stating facts. You don't even know the truth. All you do is throw insults. Can't you tell the difference between what's acceptable and what's not? Shut up. And you, how dare you speak to the CEO like that? Do you even know your place? This isn't about titles or education. This is about basic human decency. Always acting so self-righteous. Someone like you, who can't even speak respectfully to the CEO, is fired. Get out of my company. Randall raised his voice as if to declare I was in the wrong. Fired over this? It was absurd. Clearly, he was the one out of line. His face flushed with anger. Randall spat his next words at me. People like you with no education don't leave behind anything of value. Delete all the data from your work and get out of here immediately. All the data? Yeah. Your work doesn't contribute to the company's profit anyway. Low education and useless work just take up space. So delete it all and leave. Are you sure about that? What, still talking back to me? No, it's fine. I understand. I'll delete everything and leave the company. I had so much I wanted to say. But it was pointless. Anything I said would fall on deaf ears with him. So I did as I was told, deleted all the work data I had accumulated, and left the company. Well, since I'm on my way home anyway, I might as well stop by the hospital. Normally, I wouldn't make it in time for visiting hours, but getting fired has freed up my schedule. What a cruel irony. I never thought it would come to this. What should I even say? After picking up some fruit as a gift, I headed to my dad's hospital room. He looked surprised when he saw me. Alex? What are you doing here at this hour? What about work? I got fired. I told him everything that had happened, hiding nothing. He probably never imagined I'd be fired for such a ridiculous reason. My dad was speechless the entire time. I still couldn't believe it myself. When I finished explaining, my dad looked at me with a mix of sympathy and disbelief. I can't believe something like that happened. Yeah, me neither. But it's fine, so I'll just start job hunting again. No, you won't need to. There's a place you can work. What? The next day, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. When I checked the screen, Randall's name was displayed. Might as well pick up the phone. Hello? Alex. What's going on? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. The inventory management system isn't working. You did this, didn't you? Oh, that. You're the one who told me to delete all the data, remember? Alex. I was simply following orders when I was told, delete all the data and leave the company. I even double-checked to make sure they were serious. By now, the company must be flooded with complaints. After all, the system is used by 4,200 companies. If it suddenly stops working, it's not just our company that's in trouble. I've always had a good memory. Maybe my brain developed to compensate for my weak body. For that, I'm truly grateful. I used that sharp memory to start learning programming back in middle school. Thinking it might be useful for work one day, I actively studied and built up my knowledge. And in this company, I finally got the chance to put my programming skills to use. I developed an inventory management system that was far more efficient than anything offered by other companies. In other words, the system this company relies on was created by me. So, when he told me to delete all the data, the system itself was included in that. Though, I might have gone too far. It's not right to cause so much trouble for everyone. I'll head back now and restore everything. Hurry up and get here. I couldn't help but notice how arrogant Randall was acting, but I reluctantly returned to the office. Thankfully, I had kept a backup, so restoring the system was successful. However, one question lingered in my mind. Why didn't you use the backup I told you about? As I pondered this, a senior colleague approached me and quietly explained. He didn't want to rely on you and hired a cheap contractor to restore the system. What? But the contractor botched it, making things worse. The problem escalated, and he had no choice but to call you. Honestly, is he an idiot? His unnecessary pride only caused more damage. I was too stunned to even respond. Well, the system is restored now. This is all your fault. What? Because of you, we've suffered massive losses. What are you going to do about it? My fault. You're responsible. You'll pay the damages, no matter what. You've got to be kidding me. He was the one who messed up the system without even listening to me first. Since I was fired, I'm no longer an employee here. I don't owe them anything, not even the effort I've put in so far. Yet instead of gratitude, he's demanding compensation? As I stood there, dumbfounded, someone who wasn't supposed to be here suddenly appeared. Don't spout nonsense. This isn't his fault, but it's yours, a voice declared. Dad? Why are you here? Standing there was none other than Mr. Kennedy. Even Randall, who always acted so confident, looked visibly shaken. It turned out that on the day I told my father everything in the hospital, Mr. Kennedy had overheard the conversation. I never imagined they were in the same hospital room. At this point, it felt like fate had intervened. Hearing about Randall's outrageous behavior, Mr. Kennedy was deeply disappointed. As his only son, Mr. Kennedy had worked hard to ensure Randall could attend a good college. He used to be a diligent student, and his efforts paid off when he got into college. He successfully completed his degree and graduated. But perhaps the diligence had backfired, turning him into an elitist obsessed with academic backgrounds. Since Randall had never displayed this attitude in front of his father, Mr. Kennedy had no idea how bad it was. He apologized to me repeatedly, and though I wasn't at fault, it made me uncomfortable. There's something awkward about being bowed to by someone you respect so much. After hearing the full story, Mr. Kennedy couldn't stand by any longer, which is why he showed up at the company that day. I've heard everything from Alex. I had no idea you'd sunk so low. What are you talking about? This disaster is the result of your obsession with academic credentials. You'll take responsibility for it. Why should I have to take responsibility? Still don't get it? You're so fixated on academic achievement that you've lost sight of what truly matters. Enough is enough. Dad, the conversation is over. You've disappointed me. Not only will you leave the company, but you'll also leave my house. No, this can't be. In the aftermath, the company went bankrupt. The damage from the incident spread far beyond just this company. The financial losses were so severe that recovery was impossible. However, Mr. Kennedy had been quietly working on a certain plan behind the scenes. It was the launch of a new business venture. The place to work my dad mentioned that day in the hospital was referring to this project. Apparently, Mr. Kennedy had been preparing for the new business for some time but was unfortunately struck by illness midway through. Even while recovering, he continued to move the project forward with the help of others. When Mr. Kennedy was discharged from the hospital, the new company was officially established. Although the previous company went bankrupt, all of us employees transitioned to the new company, avoiding unemployment. At first, I wasn't sure how things would turn out, but I'm truly grateful for Mr. Kennedy's foresight and efforts. The other employees were overjoyed, enthusiastically declaring to Mr. Kennedy, "Long live the CEO, and we'll follow you forever." And the good news didn't stop there. Dad, congratulations on your discharge. Ah, thank you. Sorry for causing so much trouble. It's fine. You were sick, so there was nothing you could have done about it. Yes, my dad had finished his treatment and was finally discharged from the hospital. Although he'd still need follow-ups, there were no major aftereffects. I was so relieved he could come home safely. By the way, about the future. The future? Mr. Kennedy reached out to me. He said if I couldn't go back to my old job, I could join his new company instead. Really? Yes. I couldn't believe Mr. Kennedy had even made such an offer to my dad. It was true that after a long hospital stay, returning to his previous job would be difficult. That's why this offer must have been such a relief for my dad. After that, we started working at the new company that Mr. Kennedy had founded. I continued to use my programming skills to develop new systems. Improving efficiency and processes in the workplace was certainly important. But I had a specific goal I wanted to achieve. I aimed to create a system that allowed people to work from anywhere. There are many people who, for various reasons, can't work in a traditional office setting. I believed this system was necessary to ensure their skills and passion wouldn't be wasted. When I proposed the idea, Mr. Kennedy immediately agreed, and I began development without delay. It took some time, but the system was finally completed. By promoting this system, we were able to attract talented individuals who couldn't physically come to an office, and they joined the company. There are surprisingly many people who want to work but can't. People like my family, who are physically weak, or those who can't commit to long-term employment, are all around us. Thanks to this initiative, the company grew even more and became a well-known name in the industry. Alex, thank you so much. Because of you, we've been able to recruit incredible talent and grow as a company. No, I should be the one thanking you. If you hadn't let me join, I wouldn't have been able to contribute. I guess that means I had a good eye for talent. You certainly did. At that, Mr. Kennedy's expression turned serious. Then, can I trust my judgment and ask you for something important? Yes? I'd like to name you as the next CEO of this company. What? I believe you're the right person for the job. You dedicate yourself wholeheartedly to what you do and inspire those around you. That's the kind of leader this company needs. All right. I may still be inexperienced, but for the future of this company, I'll give it my all. Refuse. He got the better of me there. Still, being recognized for my abilities was genuinely gratifying. From here on, I want to continue creating an environment where everyone can shine and make the most of their talents.